You're watching the Sensephere channel, and now some chilled discussion after the week's angst, with the Doctor Who Detox Hour, or two.
You cannot get rid of that sound, can you? Honestly, they are wild, they are. Welcome one and all. Well, it's Friday. I feel as though I'm going to do the crackerjack thing. It's Friday. It's late morning in the UK. It's late evening in Australia. It's time for the weekly Doctor Who detox, delighting and delivering on nostalgia, laughs, great positivity around our favourite show, Doctor Who. Our diet of Doctor Who this week centres on the deadly Daleks. Let's face it, do I need an excuse? Since it's the anniversary of that iconic moment when the Daleks emerged from the River Thames in the World's End. I wasn't there, but we all know the shot. 1964. A good excuse, isn't it, to detoxify ourselves from the Whovian woes of the week and actually focus on something like that. We have our panelist ups and downs of the Time Rota week. We have our On This Day Doctor Who segment, and we have a hell of a debate on the state of TV, terrestrial TV, and how it affects our show going forward. So get comfy, okay? Get behind the sofa. Our detoxers are landing now. So let's see if I can get one of them on. Let's have a look. Oh, let's have a look. Oh no, I've got to remember, there's problems in the ether. Remember that? Always the same with the ether. Now, let me see if I can get him on. We need to kind of all collectively see if we can get Dougie on, because as you know, it's very problematic with all this technology. So let's see if I Yeah, I've got him. Hello. Did that hurt?
Hello. I hope I sound okay. I sounded like I was underwater last week, so I do apologise, but I've got myself new equipment. So it's new equipment. So, but please, anyone in the thread, if I sound odder than usual, please tell me, because I didn't find out till after the show last time. Anyway,
Yeah,
hello.
I'll kick him up. No, anyway, so good to see you. And of course, we've got Cyber Matt Strikes. Dan there. Hello.
Hey, gang.
Oh, well, there's plenty to talk about. You know that for a fact. And I just thought we could start with obviously our ups and downs of the Time Rota week, because of course it's been a hell of a week. So I suppose let's start on that, eh? There you go, our Time Rota week. Don't say you've not seen it. Right, so there we go. Where do you want to start, Doug? Up or down?
I had a couple of ups. I had a bit of a clean out this week, and I found something I thought I'd lost. My pride and joy.
Wow.
Jumped a few years ago, and I thought I'd lost it. So that's a big up. My other up was I've just ordered the season 2 standard edition Doctor Who box set, the William Hartnell one, which kind of coincides with our subject tonight, because that features obviously Dalek Invasion of Earth.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty stoked about that. the downs we were actually talking about earlier was I finally got to see the preview of the Christmas special, and as I think both of you also add, it was a little bit underwhelming for me. So it's probably a bit unfair to call it a down, but it wasn't an up.
Yeah, so as the thread's on fire already. Tell us your ups and downs of the week, and as you're telling me, I'll talk to Dan as well. But basically, yeah, there's the trailer, and we were all talking about the trailer just before we started the show. I know I've mentioned it on our Sunday show. Please tune in. Something fishy, it's called. But yeah, I know. Go on, Cybermat Strikes, Dan. Your ups and downs of the Time Rotor week.
Okay, so given we're into time travel here, my up is actually in the future. So this week, I'm meeting Sylvester McCoy and Dwayne.
Wow.
So I'm really looking forward to that this weekend. So,
that makes an awful lot of sense. Yes,
that's got to be the biggest up I'm going to have this week.
Yeah, and he's gonna. Have you met him before?
No, not really. No.
Yeah,
I've seen him live, but I haven't actually had a conversation with him.
He's lively and he gets involved and he goes for the jokes, and that's fair enough. He knows it's a bit like watching Katie Manning. They know their role, which is be original, be creative, don't just give the same old, you know. That'll be very good for you. So, I mean, God, there's so many ups and downs. I don't know where to start. I'll just check with our thread, who are obviously advising us. I can see a few people have already mentioned the trailer. Like I said, it's either a Whovian war or you thought it was something good. So let's have a look. We've got the Peter Venkman fan site. Good to see you. Lee Smith's there. Divine and Dragon. Jamie. We've got, let's have a look. Who else? Stephanie Barrett from Hobart, Tassie. Hello. Dwayne's there somewhere. And
so many Aussies are out there. Let us know.
It's nice to see the Aussies, isn't it? Then we've got oh gosh, I mean, I'll just put this up because obviously I can't read half the time. Boy 73. Jamie's 73 as well. You were 73, kid. And then we've got let's just check on everybody. Morgan Dean. Hello, everyone. Look at me catching another live stream. Well, the more the merrier, and good to see you. Tell us your ups and downs of the week. Divine and Dragon tells us the trailer was flat, unfortunately. That's saying something. So, yes, I've caught up for now. And Rick Storm, just come in there. Good morning. He's an hello fan, obviously. Right, so ups and downs of the week. Well, according to me, where do I start? Well, let's start. I mean, to commemorate the anniversary of the death of actually William Russell, to be honest, which is a down, but the up was he nearly got to 100, and he was the original companion. And so, yeah, William Russell, I wanted to give a shout out to because he died on the 19th of November last year, and so we've hit those horrible anniversaries, really. And of course, people have got sneaky memories. Like there's me with him at the 20th, the 2013.
Who was that young man in the photo?
I know. Who's aged worse? Probably me. 2013 in Newcastle. It was our big anniversary year, wasn't it? There were brilliant conventions everywhere, and he was good. He was good for value for money, especially on the 60s panel. Sprightly, everything. Defending William Hartnell. I love to see that. I like loyalty.
I do.
And I mean, he wasn't being stupid. He wasn't eulogizing. I mean, there were a few comments about William Hartnell and, thoughts on certain topics. But actually, he defended him. And I think he realized, I'm sorry, but I don't know. There's what happens in the changing room stays in the changing room. I thought that was part of the process. So, yes, there's my little link. So I'm really happy I met William Russell all those years ago. Because nobody lasts forever. It's so shame. But we've got to say this. Original companion. They set the template, didn't they?
Yeah,
Definitely.
and you know, when people say 3 people in the TARDIS don't work, I mean, Susan, Barbara, and Ian did work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It worked because 2 of them were working together. Barbara and Ian were kind of a unit, as in they had to be from the same school. I mean, they weren't lovers or anything. They were just 2 teachers who were thrown in the deep end. And I'll say that again. They weren't lovers. Have you noticed that? We'd have them as lovers now. They'd have a love child in the TARDIS. Yeah. And Susan.
But they definitely had a thing going.
Oh, don't you start. Are you Chris Chibnall in disguise?
There was an undercurrent.
No. They had more chemistry than Yaz and the Doctor.
Oh, don't give him an ice cream, honestly. Can you imagine? Can you imagine Ian and Barbara sat on top? You see, that's the other thing. Sat on top of the TARDIS in space. It's like, I don't like turning science fiction fantasy into this dross where you can open the doors of the TARDIS and you can almost walk out for a meter and you can. Peter Davison must look back going, it was very hard for me to throw that cricket ball in Photo Doomsday. It was really hard. And now you can go walkies, you can have an ice cream, you can do anything now.
Yeah, well, in Edge of Destruction, if the doors had opened, they were all going to die, remember?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And what was the volcano one, the salamander and all the rest of it? You know, that was dangerous as well, wasn't it? But yes. Now, I'm keeping up with the thread. This is always a good test for me. I might have retired from teaching, but my God, it keeps you going on this. Lee Smith getting whipped by wet towels in the changing rooms. Oh, yes, I do remember. Although that happens in hotels as well. When I was a wine waiter, if you go into the kitchens to get the meals to take out to help the waitresses, they're tempted to whip you with the towels then as well. There's an issue about whipping of towels. I don't know. They talk about blooming, work practices nowadays. They haven't a clue. Right. So that William Russell. So, rest in peace. And we're so glad he was in Doctor Who, and we're so glad he was a good custodian. And Meg Fawcett came back in Power of the Doctor. Now, the other up I thought, and I'll let Rick Storm mention it. B&M History of the Daleks 19 announced, along with friends and foes figures. So let's have a look at that. Yes, it's got me excited as well because I do like a good Dalek set. And now we're getting up to the parting of the ways and the color of them. I mean, look at that black and gold one.
Oh, that's lovely.
So, yes, Rick Storm, I agree with you. I'm pretty excited about this. What do you do, Rick Storm? Do you buy one and open one? What do you do? Because that's what I do. But yeah, they look fab.
I just open them. I'm committed to opening them. Although I have got one big fella here that I've kept in the box all these years.
Yeah. Why do we keep them in the box? You know why? Because we think it might earn money one day. I mean, it's just. There's the friends and foes of the Doctor one.
Oh yeah.
So you've got the Cyberman with an enormous gun. This is when I don't like Doctor Who it gets a bit silly. The size of the gun is just ridiculous. I mean, I remember Rose in Stolen Earth. The size of that gun just looks stupid. I mean,
wow, that's
yeah. I love them clockwork robots. I just think they were slightly underutilized. Just slightly underutilized in the story, I think.
They were. They're very scary.
Oh yeah, that ticking. So I agree with you, Rick Storm. There they are.
I was a fan of the 80s blaster that had was it magenta? The pink beams. I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, and I'm sorry, we're just keeping up to date on everybody. So Styboy 73 in New York State. I'm gonna have to go back over there. I've just come back. I'll have to go back over. If everybody accommodates.
Welcome.
Yeah. So Rick Storm says he opens them. Well, I don't blame you. I mean, God, why not? Peter Venkman, even the fourth had to figure out a way to get from the TARDIS to other ships. Yes, good point. Was it Nightmare on Eden? we had to make a. I mean, that was a complex story, Nightmare on Eden. They really went for it. So yes, who's partaking in getting those?
I really do want a Cyberman. I don't have a Cyberman at all.
I think
They're always so expensive because they pop up on eBay. Third party are really expensive, and
yeah.
I mean, obviously, some you want to pay the price for, but yeah, I've been actually buying a lot of second-hand ones. So I don't keeping them in the box.
Yeah,
so I've been doing that, getting a few loose ones.
Yeah,
filling up holes in my collection.
Well, on this ups and downs of the Time Rotor Weekly Week, I'll just add more to that title. It's going to be the longest collective noun in history. I will also say, you may have seen a flash of it. SFX magazine, there's their Christmas special. Stephen Moffat brings joy to the world. He better. I think it just says there's going to be some Doctor Who cards, collector art cards in it. The world exclusive, I dare say they'll show you bits and bobs, but it's more interesting talking about the Box of Delights because they're going to repeat that on BBC, for example. But as you know, you mentioned, Dan, the trailer. The trailer is obviously what that is all about, the SFX. They've gone big on showing the Doctor and Nicola on the front. I can only be honest, I'm not feeling the excitement.
No, well, it wasn't even a trailer, was it? I suppose it was just an excerpt. And it hasn't struck a nerve for me. I'm going to be watching it, which they kind of know we will be watching it. When I don't feel like we're the target audience.
No, not at all.
No, but in our item later, when we look at the state of TV, the BBC, ABC, what's going wrong, etc., it might be interesting what we think some of the clues are there. So stay with us, everybody, for that, because I think all roads lead to Rome, so to speak. So look, do you know what? There was a time I would collect these. I would, loads of them are in the loft now. I'm just not feeling it. And the only thing I can be on this, like you two lads, is authentic. That's sadly, I want to like it. I want to be excited, but the trailer for some reason just didn't do it. That dinosaur was impressive compared to obviously Invasion of the Dinosaurs, but I don't want slapstick. I don't want Doctor Who trying to pretend it's a lightweight Indiana Jones. I just no.
You're right, Brendan. I think you're definitely right. I was looking forward to it. I was being quite optimistic, but this preview actually has kind of dampened my spirits a little bit. I mean, like Dan, I'm still going to watch it, probably with a few beers under my belly, some eggnog or something. But I'm hoping they'll surprise me, but I'm not very optimistic.
Okay, then let's cheer you up a bit more. I think this should be guaranteed, and it's part of our show today anyway. The Daleks Ultimate Guide. It's out. Some people have even viewed it in W.H. Smith's already. Now this, the Dr. Panini is doing really well on these. They've just done one special, and this one is just an absolute Dalek special. Now take a look inside. Just look at some of the pages here. So it's like an encyclopedia on the Daleks. And so, if you really are wanting to feel a bit up at the weekend, I don't know if you can get it yet. Look at that Dalekography. I love a diagram. Look at the annuals and
annuals. Now you're talking my language. Annuals.
Well, this is it. I mean, we had to survive once without DVDs and without video and even without audio cassettes, and we would have a book and we would get the magazine out or the book and we would read an old story. I mean, look at that. Look at Michael Wisher.
The best ever.
Yeah, the voice is amazing. So yeah, there's a lovely upbeat bit. I've got it ordered. I'm just waiting for it to arrive. Yeah, I'm up for that one. And since you can see Michael Wisher there, I'm not lying. At the moment, in one of our repeat viewings, we are watching, and so I'm enjoying it, Carnival of Monsters. Yeah, that's not Carnival. There it is, Carnival of Monsters. I mean, you see, this is when they did comedy, but it was good Doctor Who. You know, I mean, you have a comedy character, but he played it a comedic character for us to watch, but he played it authentically. I loved all that.
Yeah.
And actually,
Got Peter Halliday there. Peter Halliday.
And it has some great ideas about immigration and everything. It's there. It's just it doesn't lay it on with a trowel. What did you make of the Drashigs?
Oh, wasn't he styled there? Yeah.
Good old Drashigs. There you go. So
I'd like to see them upgraded, to be honest.
Yes, I think that could be quite easy. So Boy 73, they need to put more effort into pushing the series. I think they're expecting the current fans to just show up. Well, we've actually said, haven't we? I mean, you've just said what the lads have said. I'll be tuning in and the lads will be tuning in. We're not full of hope, but we're still tuning in. So they're getting their view. It's just, when I did the season 1 reviews, I noticed there were some people telling me in the thread that they are dropping out of at the end of season 1. Now, we'll soon know, won't we, whether people have actually dropped out or whether they're still hanging around. I don't know.
My view is if you're still hanging around, you might as well see it out to the bitter end. If this is the last season.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to check. Oh, now this is a tester, folks. Now, Thread, you've got to play fair, Thread, and the lads. I'm going to just see. Now, here we go. I'm really going to throw you in the deep end. Now, this is our bit of on 1 hour show Pointless the other day. They had a question. Now, the show's called Pointless, and of course, the question was, they had to choose titles of episodes in the Jodie Whittaker era, or the cast of the 2022 episode, The Power of the Doctor. Now, I just want to tell you for a moment, just as a laugh, that David Tennant, one of the answers for The Power of the Doctor, only got about 14. So basically, David Tennant, a famous doctor, but of course, maybe people don't associate him with that story. Now, I want to ask you, lads, and the thread, starting now, and see how many we can get. Titles of episodes in the Jodie Whittaker era.
Spyfall.
Yep.
The Ghost Monument. Something of Ranskor of Kolos.
Yeah.
I mean, Timeless Children, how can you have that exercise from your brain?
Yeah.
Isn't it terrible? Time's gone blank. That was a classic example of never watching the show again. I watched it on its first run. And I've yet to revisit it. I didn't even buy the DVDs, and I always buy the DVDs or the Blu-rays, and I don't own them. So yeah, that's a good point.
It's a good question, but I think a lot of the answers were pointless. Because
I was about to say,
and it just tells you, the BBC is still using it in quizzes, of course. But it's no longer really at the forefront of popular culture.
No.
And it's, I've got them all listed here like a little cheat. But the ones that were scored the biggest were stuff like Fugitive of the Jadoon, Rosa.
Of course, yeah. The Fugitive Doctor one.
Yeah.
Resolution of the Daleks and Daleks.
I like
Revelation
those. I actually
of
did
the
one of
Daleks.
those. Yeah.
So isn't that a giveaway? And then it gets down to Arachnids in the UK, Legend of the Sea Devils, Orphan 55,
What happened over my mind?
Now, I think this is...
Orphan 55 was the one I was trying to remember.
Oh, God. That horrible couple, that old couple. I say old, I'm probably older than
Benny,
them. But,
yeah.
That's it. Benny.
Because of global warming. Oh, I mean, oh, God. But anyway, now I've broken my own rules. Now, I need to show the thread. I'm well aware of this. Has Brendan just veered us into not detoxing, but toxifying the Doctor Who atmosphere?
Well, I'm feeling pretty toxic right now.
We've all got a warning now. So here's my warning. Sorry about this, lads. So I will set the alarm off if I think I'm going to go toxic because
there's giant bloody maggots coming.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, Thread. This is called the Doctor Who Detox, and if any of us feel as though we're about to blow a gasket, we'll set the alarm off, right? So you can join in the thread as well. If you really want to get something off your chest, the first word you should write is alarm, and then before I read it out. So remember, so everyone in the thread, if there's something you need to get off your chest, which you might think might toxify our chat, type the word alarm, and then before I read it out, I'll do the alarm, and then we'll hear your toxic moment. So yes, there you go. Do you feel a little bit more detoxified, or have I been recognizing reckon it?
No.
Okay, then let's cheer up. Let's cheer up on this day on this day in Doctor Who in the past. You had the Android Invasion Part 1, State of Decay Part 1, Survival Part 1, or Terror of the Vervoids Part 4. I've put the Dalek Invasion of Earth Part 1 there, which was the day before, because we've referenced that, and we're going to do our Dalek special in a minute. Which one of those do you think is... I'll leave the Dalek one out for a second. Which one of those four do you think is classy Doctor Who and well worth, watching again?
All of them.
So, yeah.
I didn't mind Android Invasion. I obviously quite like Survival.
Android Invasion Part 1's really good because it's setting up the whole mystery of
I
there's something wrong.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Terror of the Vervoids. To be perfectly honest, I vaguely remember even watching that one.
That's when they all ended up turning into, autumnal leaves, of course.
Yeah.
And
that was genocide.
That had quite a high death count, actually.
If you count all the weeds.
A few Rick Storm and Divine and Dragon are picking State of Decay. Now, I've actually stockpiled that. I've recorded a review, which I'll, as we get close to Christmas, you may all look out for it, because we've done a review of State of Decay, and my God, we had a laugh discussing everything from Adric's acting to the lot. But yeah, there's a lot of fun there, and we've got some funny items because do you want to cheer up, lads? Do you want me to kind of cheer up here? Because as part of this detox, every time I do a classic review now, I'm obsessed with, is Sutek on the TARDIS and where is he? What would the Shooty Doctor do? Well, I've added another item in the light of last Sunday's show when we found out there was an intimacy coordinator in the new Doctor Who series. So I thought, oh my God, every time we watch a classic story, we're going to have to discuss the intimacy levels of what was seen. So we now have what I call the intimacy watch. See if you like it.
I know most of the good stuff there happened without the intimacy coordinator.
So there's
no Perry there. Where was Perry?
I like it.
I did have Perry. I mean, I had loads of stuff stockpiled there, but so yeah, everybody in the thread, look out for my classic reviews from now on, because there's an intimacy watch as well. So
I feel the chat detoxing there with a few of those.
Yeah.
So that bit, we've got to have a bit of fun on the detox show, don't we? And so what I was going to ask you about next is, I wanted to take us back to the Christmas trailer, 74, I think it was. I'm flicking through because it does this on this one. It's very naughty. There you go. Look at this. Boxing Day 1974. Trailer for the repeat of Planet of the Spiders in the afternoon at 2:45. And these are just some screenshots from it. Look, I mean, he looks as though he's wearing that Roberman hat. I know. There you go. There you go. And then
Wow.
we've got Sylvester. So yes, everybody, can you just remember when you go back to, oh God, there's an omnibus on, and you can just sit the whole afternoon watching Planet of the Spiders and enjoying good old escapist Doctor Who, and John Pertwee on top of his game, Unit on top of their game, Sarah Jane Smith was well established so quickly. Oh God, sometimes you really do wish. I'm jealous of time. I wish you could go back.
Oh yeah.
I look at that. Mind you, you almost think, God, it is James Bond. Look at it. It's just absolutely
Pretty impressive.
He loved his gadgets, didn't he? I love that little helicopter thing.
Yeah. So you saw a little bit there, which was our friend Dwayne, who would normally be on here. He's been looking after the person who's going to be seeing Cybermat Strike soon. And there's Sylvester doing his sightseeing in Tasmania, getting around. There he is. Somewhere, sometime you will need the Doctor. He keeps going for the joke photographs. And of course, he's not been alone down there. He's with Janet as well. And this was posted yesterday as well. The weather in the UK is definitely scarf worthy, but if you're wearing one, beware the Daleks. And this is a shot from The Guardian years ago. I'll make it bigger for you. There you go. So we've got a good old piece of Sylvester, and we've got the Daleks, which we're going to discuss in a moment, all together here. Brilliant. And of course, I mentioned Janet, and she was obviously working with Dwayne as well with Sirens of Audio. And I'm sure I've been in a lift with her. I know that's a sort of story in itself. She's tiny. She's tiny. I mean, I'm only short, but God, she's tiny. And me and Jamie got in the lift. It was when we met William Russell. It was at convention. And you just get in the lift, I think, to go back to your hotel room for a second. And there's this tiny Janet Fielding, and you expect her to be the mouth on legs, and you expect her to be, I know it's not right because she's not, but I think as an actress, she's also forthright too, isn't she? But she was just in a lift, and I thought, look, I'm not going to be that type of fan who, full of questions and high and is in their face. They need, the lift is still kind of private time. So I actually respected that because I'm a nutter. And I just smiled and said hello, and she smiled back. And we thought, no, I think when the lift doors open is when the actor thinks, right, here we go, I'm going to face the crowds. The lift isn't the time. So I thought, I've got to leave her alone,
It's funny.
Very
I always
classy.
thought of her as being really tall, but is that because Peter Davis and them are really short?
And she probably had high heels in that air stewardess suit as well. But no, she is short. I'm 5 foot, 7, 8, and she was shorter than me by quite a way.
Okay.
But it reminds me when I was at DWAS in May or April this year, and you go to the loo, and in the urinal next to you is Fraser Hines. I mean, you've got to have a proper. There's got to be a proper etiquette. And I know some fans will blur the lines. I just went in there and I thought, well, I'm not going to talk to him in the urinal. It's Ron. These actors need private time. And
I bet someone's asked him for an autograph at the end.
Of course they have.
Probably. And he wrote it on the wall in we. No. Remember when you used to, God, did you ever do that with you when you weed in the snow? Did you ever make a letter?
Never. What are you
sorry.
talking about?
Well, it wasn't last week, obviously, when I was a kid, but
Snow's too rare over here.
Yeah, that's true. You've got a good excuse. So there you go. So I can't delay it any longer. Not that I'm delaying, but the Daleks. Come on, let's get tasty with the Daleks, eh? And what prompted it really was I was aware of the anniversary, but I thought, well, what? But Ben Williams tweeted, I think it was yesterday, the most iconic Doctor Who shot ever. There's a reason it's never been an attempt to redo it. In 1,000 years' time, this single image will be how Doctor Who is remembered, period. And now he picked the shot going over the Westminster Bridge. I've just added the iconic shot coming out the water as well. But yeah, I must admit, this must have been a game changer in Doctor Who.
Definitely.
It must have been so exciting to have the Daleks on Earth for all the kids that saw it the year before on Skaro.
I was one of those kids. I was 7, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have vague memories of what. The memories are deceptive, aren't they? But I was 7 and definitely watched it. But I loved the Daleks. Loved them and was terrified by them. But that was the point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I remember Dalek Mania. It was they were as big as the Beatles for about maybe 3 or 4 years, particularly in the UK. It was everywhere. Oh, look at that! That's fantastic.
Well, this is it, because I was going to say they're so iconic that they actually are in pop culture. I mean, this is where, Jodie Whittaker's episodes, they don't remember in Pointless, and it was only a few years ago, but the Daleks are ingrained in popular culture. People will know the word exterminate and link it maybe to the Daleks before you link it to anything in any history. It's in the Bear Tapestry. There you go.
There you go.
I must admit, the Invasion Earth, I find the TV Invasion Earth so much more enjoyable than even the movie. I really like the grittiness of the. There's a texture to the TV one.
Well, I'm looking forward to the Blu-ray when I get it, the standard Blu-ray, because apparently they've really upgraded the quality of the picture. I guess everyone that has the limited edition knows that already, but I only collect the standard ones. So I'm really looking forward to seeing
it. The truth is that most of us of a certain age will have seen the Dalek Invasion of Earth in the movie version first, probably. And that went for me.
I didn't, but I treat the movie as a separate universe, and I love the movies. I really do. But I remember as a kid, my parents took me to see it, and there was something in my little brain that was going, this isn't quite right. But I still loved it. I remember thinking how messy the inside of the TARDIS was. And just little nitpicks, and why is Susan a little kid, and why is Ian Roy Castle, and but on the positive side, they were I saw them on the big screen. They were just full color. What seemed like a big budget. I mean, apparently it was a low budget movie, but compared to Doctor Who, it was a big budget. So
you've got Rick.
Yeah.
Well, you've got Rick Storm here saying, "I prefer the TV version because it's not played as camp like the movie does."
That's a very good comment. I would agree with that. Yeah, it's much darker in tone of appearance. Yeah.
Well, you see, of course, the world building could go over many episodes. I mean, this shot's intriguing because, of course, I didn't realize that the Daleks, in this second time they're on Doctor Who, had very extendable sink plungers. I mean, they really were like feelers, like tentacles. And
they come to attention.
Are these the ones with the satellite dish on their backs? Have they got the satellite dish on the back? Is that the version? I can't remember.
I think so. God, I'll see if I've got a shot of one of them with it on the back. I can't see any of them with anything on the back. I can't remember now. It's gone out of my head. But I think it was a clever, genius move to bring the Daleks to Earth and to really let rip. And I think this is what RTD does now, but maybe it's just got tired, that actually to have iconic buildings behind the Daleks, Trafalgar Square, Big Ben.
Brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I agree. Also, and you probably know this anyway, but I remember it as a little kid, that originally the Daleks could only move on those special metal floors, so they were unable to go out into the wilderness. So the fact that they expanded it so they could go anywhere made them all the more of a threat. I thought it was, I agree with you. And putting them in familiar circumstances, which is what Doctor Who does really well, putting the familiar with the unfamiliar and the monsters. There's nothing scarier than a monster in your own backyard.
Well, David Harding has said, I mean, that moment when the Dalek comes out of the Thames water impresses him. Yeah. But as Ben Williams says, it's never been repeated, and maybe it shouldn't. But the Daleks, the Daleks can now fly. The Daleks can now do loads of things, but we've never seen them underwater again. Because I have to say that there's no. It seems to
me because MDF in the water just destroys it.
It's
Probably
interesting,
nearly
isn't
killed
it?
him.
I know.
Yeah, I think there's a film apparently.
Because
Yeah.
if you really think about it, the Daleks can fly, they can go underwater. I can't think. There's only Exelon and a few moments like that where their power's drained, but they are pretty invincible. Therefore,
Mm.
you know, you have a few of them and stuck on a planet, and you're all going to die. You know, like an alien. You had one alien on a spaceship, and it was obliterating the crew.
Mm.
And just like the Dalek episode tried to replicate a bit of that, you just need one blooming or a couple of Daleks, and you could just create an absolute thriller. And I think the focus has gone on like toys and gimmicks and merchandise and hyperbole instead of actually as a story writer going, what would scare a kid? A
Yeah.
Dalek who doesn't negotiate, facing you down, and your
Yeah.
choices of escape are limited. That's it.
Absolutely.
Mm.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Paul Richards, good to see you today. The bleak opening of the Roberman killing himself is quite dark
Yeah.
for a family show.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And these are the bits that the TV version really depicted a lot better, because you really got to roar. You know, it was because of course in the movie, which I still love, that it's almost like comedy when he opens the door, you know, and he nearly falls.
Yeah.
And there's
That's
elements.
right, yeah.
And of course, the bit on the ship, you know, when all the Rover men have their plates of it looks like Skittles or something, and it's done like a comedy sequence.
Mm.
I always still feel that's a bit of a misstep. It's a shame, really. I don't know why they needed that bit of comedy in. But yeah, because of the Rover men,
Worse than the movie.
because the Robermen could have really been much more kind of intimidating in the movie.
Yeah. It was played for, I mean, Bernard Cribbin sort of played it for laughs, didn't he?
Yeah, and I
He was
understand.
a really good actor.
I mean, I think that
yeah,
was I think that was their intention. So they delivered on their intention.
Yeah.
It's just I just don't know if they
Yeah.
needed to do that. Lee Smith, I have a few
Yeah.
ideas about some stories with underwater Daleks. And can you imagine? Oh God, was it Bad Wolf? I think it was Bad Wolf, where you saw that Dalek in space and the lights basically were saying exterminate, and then it blasted Joe, wasn't it, away? Was she called Joe? She was in the Big Brother episode of Bad Wolf in the story, and she got exterminated from space, and that was chilling.
It was very chilling, yeah. It's
I
absolutely chilling.
mean, if I was just going to ask everybody in the thread and you two, you know, I call this the Dalek Special, the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's so many stories, there's so many moments, but which moments did you think that is the Daleks at their ultimate, either the most threatening, menacing, scary in the whole of Doctor Who? When have they really delivered?
Oh God, there's a few moments. You kind of touched on it earlier. Dalek in the 2005 series really surprised me, because I had a feeling that the Daleks were diluted somewhat as the series progressed, and I think the Dalek episode showed them to be what they were. Like, they were essentially, they're a tank with a creature inside, and people often refer to them as robots. People that don't watch Doctor Who, obviously, I mean, they're not robots. It's a machine that's operated by a being inside. And I think the Dalek episode really showcased how fearsome and destructive a Dalek could be. So I think that would actually be a major one for me. Apart from that, the very first Dalek episode, just how ruthless they were. And then I still remember that scene where you see that there's a creature. I think from memory, they have a little hand coming out from under a blanket or something, and that was quite chilling.
Yeah, and I can remember as a young teenager, Resurrection of the Daleks tried to do that again with it when it was strangling somebody, didn't it? I mean, remember?
That's right.
I think, as I said, with comedy or shows like Minder and I mentioned Indoors, there's a certain art in drama to sometimes have a well-described character who you never see. And I think, Doug, the Dalek mutant is one of those where you should maybe see
Yes.
a glimmer, but never see the whole thing.
You're right, actually. I think it spoiled it a bit by showing the whole thing, because it's always your imagination. Nothing is ever scarier than your imagination. So I think you've hit on a.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, because we all talk about in the Pyramids of Mars, the mummies killing that gamekeeper, but you never saw it. It was our imagination that did it, and the sound. And I think the mutant, show the claw, show bits of the mutant, but I would actually say less is more, and actually would scare you to death. So Morgan Dean here, I love most Dalek stories from the classic series. I love Dalek, but they got pretty cartoony in the later New Who years.
Yeah, that's probably described better. Yeah. They were distilled somewhat. They weren't as scary.
Nah.
What's your take on when Moffat extended the Dalek threat into the eye stalks coming out of the front of humans? Did that hurt? Did that like irritate you?
It irritated the crap out of me.
There's this obsession. It was also in that lad who was the failed companion in the Dalek series.
Oh yeah.
And he had that strange thing there as well, didn't he? Yeah, but I know what you're saying, Dan, because look, effects can do anything now. It's just that why? Because
it was a bit stupid.
For a second, it might scare you if you're a little kid. But the thing is, like you're talking to a human, but they might end up actually being a Dalek. But this doesn't make sense. Again, everything these showrunners do, which is called they're bored with the Dalek creature and they want to add, change, adapt, or like in Stephen Moffat's case, make them into jelly babies. And give them hunchbacks with a battery pack that'll blow up. We all know what they're like. Yeah. And instead, just go, what you've got is a ruthless machine, and you never, ever challenge that. I remember the BBC and I remember we're coming to the BBC later, but remember when the BBC would protect when Daleks were used in public, because they protected the Dalek, the Doctor Who franchise, really, which is we don't want them to become a joke item. We don't want them to be diminished. Now, unfortunately, that bolt is shot. We've seen them as a joke item. We've had them change. We've seen inside them. They've been a hybrid. And I call it showrunners being bored with the program they're supposed to be custodians of. Try and be inventive with what you do with the Dalek. Don't change the Dalek. Be just inventive with it.
Or just go nuts and start stacking bodies everywhere with a high count like Eric Saward did. I really love Resurrection for that.
Absolutely.
Do you get a nasty feeling, though, the way the world is, that Eric Saward just wouldn't be allowed to have anything broadcast now because a high death count is just...
Yeah, but that's why I want a group of people to get their hands on Doctor Who while no one cares. See, now's the perfect time for a renaissance of Doctor Who, where everyone's kind of tuned out and they kind of want to do it, and but the stakes are lower, so hand it off to a team where they just go full horror and start to stack bodies again and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Now I've just got a couple of things here before I lose them. So Morgan Dean, the speech of the Dalek at the end of the Genesis of the Daleks after murdering Davros, just evil, perfect. That, I mean, and remember, I've got to be true to myself here. When I was doing season 1 reviews, I went mad about breaking the fourth wall, and in a way, it felt like, as a kid, that the Dalek was talking to me, and in a way, it was. But I think in the story, the Dalek knew there was a camera or something, as in because there were,
he's talking to the people outside the bunker.
Yeah, but
like,
I have to say,
we will grow stronger. We will.
As a kid, that really did that really got me. And I know what you mean, Morgan Dean, because that absolutely caught me short, which is you expect the end of a Doctor Who story where it's all over. And then suddenly to find this Dalek just comes at the camera, which I didn't think of a camera. I just thought he's coming at me and he's telling me off. Whoa. David Harding, of course, reference in Genesis. Now, we were talking about the Dalek mutant, and I said less is more. But in this case, he said, did a great job of making the Dalek mutant dangerous and repulsive without showing the entire creature. So I suppose we agree. Yeah. Snippets.
Yeah, the mutants were really terrifying because they were able to strangle people.
They were.
Definitely.
In Genesis.
Have we okay, are we still on the thriller minute stuff? Any other go-to stories? I'm trying to resist mentioning Planet of the Daleks for the umpteenth time because it's my go-to Dalek story.
Yeah, no. I think that's the thing that I kind of regret is that we've never really picked up the full, like, this is where I feel like Doctor Who's missed a trick here. They've, especially with the new Who, you've got the renegade Daleks and the Imperial Daleks, and you could have them as we talk about the Whoniverse, but there's no sense that you've got this threat out there in the universe. It's not like you remember in the classic series, you'd turn up here and then you'd be dealing with these people, and these people would know about Daleks and they would know about Cybermen. Yeah. Whereas in New Who, that doesn't really happen. And yet it would be so much, it would expand the show to be able to have a sense that, there are Daleks looming on the outer limits, and, these settlements are threatened by Dalek incursion, and that you've got multiple factions. Like, you could really set up a whole board game for a series.
Right, okay, this is a debate one. Let's see where the thread stands on this one. So let's open up this debate slightly, and I'll risk this. Are you ready? I'm risking going toxic. Yeah, let's risk going toxic for a second, because it's about Doctor Who and the Daleks. You've just raised a topic, Dan, that actually I feel I'm on the opposite side of. I think once we started from Resurrection, particularly, having factions of Daleks, I started to just not like it, actually. I think it's a bit like Davros, unfortunately, a great invention, but I feel as though it's distracted us from the Daleks and diminished them in a way. And I think the Dalek faction plot has run out. In my case, I feel as though, stop it, please. Can we just have Daleks, please? I know Evil of the Daleks did it as well, but I'm just thinking, can we? We have a cream Dalek versus a grey Dalek, and all this, and it starts to become jelly babies again. And I just think, can we have the Daleks, who surely, if they're logical and everything, would actually turn their fire on outside aliens, not themselves? I think it's Doctor Who fandom getting wrapped up in itself again. I think present a Dalek, no factions, make them ruthless, please. So open the debate up there.
I think look, I hear what you're saying. I could take or leave the factions, the different factions, and I suppose it's having renegades. It's kind of good because it means you can have Daleks without Davros hanging around. But I think it's a bit like, I hear this complaint about Batman and Superman and other characters out in the universe. We keep making shows about obscure side characters and all these, a bit like War Between the Land and the Sea. It's like, why are we making spin-offs of side characters and things when we've got like the 8th Doctor sitting there with 20 years worth of stories, when you could make one decent bloody series? And it's like, why can't we just have the Doctor being the Doctor? Why can't we just have Daleks out in the universe being Daleks. And when
I
we
hear
meet the
ya.
Daleks, I'd like to meet the Daleks in full flight, but
Yeah.
have the stakes weighted properly. Like, I feel like Moffat always went obscure, look for the weird and obscure aspects of the Daleks rather than playing
he's
with proper
one.
Daleks.
He's one. So, for example, and David Harding, can you just explain a little bit more? I'm intrigued. So please just, I know I'll bring you up when I, but Paul Richards, Daleks hate imperfection. So why would they have an asylum? Surely they destroy it. And that brings
Or
the
a
point you're
parliament.
saying. Yeah, that's what you're saying, Dan, which is why would they, why do we have all these niches of Daleks? The special weapons Dalek, which we all love, but the common sense is if the special weapons Dalek is so invincible, make an army of them.
Yeah, you just have
Yeah,
all the
good point.
Daleks as special weapons Daleks.
Yeah, fair point.
So David Harding, I'm not wanting to let it go because I'm really interested. I like debate, and so I'll bring it up first so you can see my point. Brendan, I couldn't disagree with you more on this. I loved the Dalek backstory that started with Genesis and ended with Remembrance. It made them seem less like Alien of the Week. Now I get that, which is there's a narrative that goes through the whole series, on and on and on. But David, did you like the faction thing, which I know is part of that? But as in, okay,
Yeah.
I can buy your argument to a degree, David, if it's over now, and from now on we then move on. Do you know what I mean? It's like it was.
David, it's okay. You're right. Brendan's probably just wrong.
Yeah,
Here we go.
yeah.
Slide up.
Who stayed up? So Dan and David are in. I mean, now it's a bit like in Star Trek when you
That's
get.
why I'm down here, but I'm behind the chat.
Yes, sorry about that.
I'm in the den.
So what I was trying to get a few things. So Madam McCann, now this is a very rare moment when you never get a Middlesbrough and a Sunderland fan agreeing on anything. But here we go. Daleks, no factions, all one colour, dirty grey. Genesis grey, yeah. Just mad on. It's the battleship grey. I love it. Just mad on taking over the universe. 100 evil and a massive body count with real jeopardy. It's grim. It's grim in the northeast. We just want lots of death. We just.
Yeah. Why not?
What about this one then? Let's have a Rick Storm. I would buy a proper animated movie if Absalom Dark, the Dalek killer, was in it. I'm not big on this comic strip stuff. So can anyone enlighten me on that? I mean, I know of him, but would you want him brought into the actual Doctor Who canon? Would you want this Dalek killer? It's a bit Marvel, isn't it?
No, I don't. Yeah, no, I'm not in. Yeah, we've got a Dalek killer. It's called Doctor Who. I mean, the Doctor.
That's a good point. That's a good point. The Doctor, my biggest argument, Dan, of course, is the Doctor's been diminished.
With the Eighth Doctor and the Daleks, bang.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
And isn't it interesting, Marjorie, and good to see you, Marjorie, that the thing is, we're all after things that aren't Shooty's Doctor doing stuff. It's kind of, Paul McGann, please. Can we do that? Can we do that?
Yeah.
It seems to be, we know that the present series is looking a little bit, and we're trying to find escape hatches, a bit like in Remembrance. How come that Emperor Dalek, Davros, just sneaks away? I mean, honestly, don't the Daleks suss it going, do you know what? We try and save him. You know, we serve him, and then suddenly he skedaddles like the, so escape show. Didn't a Dalek architect say, Davros, excuse me, cost of living crisis. Why is there a big slide we have to build at the back of the ship? It intrudes on the exhaust pipe. It's just important.
in the Dalek world, the captain doesn't go down with the ship.
He goes bye.
He's more like the Italian captain. Straight out the back.
But what is it really? What is it in Remembrance of the Daleks? I mean, Davros, I'm pretending I'm the Emperor with this, and then he's confused. He looks like a mechanic having a heart attack because he's surrounded by wires. It's a bit like the Doctor Who Dalek movie, the TARDIS. It's got wires everywhere.
Yeah.
It's as if he's landed in the Doctor Who TARDIS from the movies, and he's like, "I'm still here," and I just thought, why have you been hiding as the Emperor? And then and then as soon as everything goes wrong, escape hatch, and he doesn't say, "Hey, you can come with me." He's on his own. He's a right one, him.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Peter Venkman Van Site, evil was the result of the Doctor introducing the concept of question and authority. Yeah, I agree. And it was a damn good story, and it was a good idea. And I am your servant. Oh, God, that was killer line, that. Because I heard that, Peter, on audio first, of course. And when I heard the audio of Evil of the Daleks, I am your servant. Oh, that was beautiful.
Then Moffat ripped it off in Victory of the Daleks.
Exactly. Do something new.
Yeah, didn't he?
Do something new. David Harding. Oh, yeah, I loved it. The Dalek as an analogy for the Nazis began in particular in Genesis. And what was one of the things the Nazis were obsessed with? Racial purity. And you know, it's so apt, let's be honest, to actually deal with it properly now. Morgan Dean's given us a meaty point here. The midpoint and creation of the factions in Resurrection, I thought was great. Added more megalomania and needed to control the Daleks, who already made it clear they didn't need anyone else. I suppose narratively, it is interesting the Davros half humanoid being their leader must irritate them no end, you know. Really irritating.
This is off the back of the ship. Each time he gets them destroyed.
I know. So I've said which chilling ones did you see? Where do you think they absolutely just wrecked the whole idea of a Dalek? Where did you think you thought, why the hell did you do that? I thought making one Dalek out of Sheffield steel bothered me, you know, with one of the Jodie Whittaker ones. This one,
was that the one when they gave it giant boobs?
Yeah, and I don't think the Dalek should be. The Dalek shouldn't be vaping either. I disagree with that. There he is. There's a version, one of the newer ones. What do you think of that?
Davros genetically engineered them so they could get right into the durries. Oh wow! Yeah. I actually liked that. There was something about those. I mean, yeah, but you can't really design the Daleks. They never look as good as the proportions that Raymond Cusick gave them.
No, again, it's.
No, you're absolutely right.
So I'll be very. Here's our nostalgia while we're talking about this. So where's it gone wrong with them? I'm thinking of stories where, one of my thrilling ones before I shift. Even Destiny of the Daleks, they really. I know Terry Nation gets blamed for he repeats plots, but sometimes, you know, Daleks are predictable and kids love that. The Daleks would always get a line of hostages and threaten to exterminate them. And I think that always works every time, because as a kid, you thought, I have to say, Destiny of the Daleks fascinates me because the Doctor, who's supposed to be this lover of human race and all the rest of it, and he actually doesn't give in to the Dalek until a few people have been exterminated. And it's a bit like when does the massacre start and the Doctor has to give in? So remember, he's got Davros there, and he suddenly, after a few people are exterminated, says, "Stop!" And you think, oh, the poor people have just been exterminated for no reason at all. And you know, I love to challenge the moral of that right in there, because where was the value? So
I feel like I really liked Destiny, but I read the book before I saw the actual episode, because I wasn't there in 1975. But the thing that bugged me about Destiny was the production values had slipped.
Yeah.
So it was like, if you're going to go back to the bunker, there'd be some really easy ways to make you feel like you were back at the bunker, resurrecting Davros, and they just didn't go there. And I thought
they
you
didn't.
missed a trick. You know, you really could have made this feel like you'd walk back into Genesis, but they didn't.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But I've just been warned by the thread, so here we go. And I blame Lee Smith first. Davros's children in need last year. The new leggy Davros's. I mean, it's to me.
I've blocked that one out.
May I warn the thread? Yeah, there's hello. This is a detox, and the thread are now getting naughty. Yeah.
Wow, there's a few alerts coming on.
There's a lot of alerts. So that alarm
very
for
top
Dalek
stuff.
Sec as well.
Oh yeah, big alarm for that one.
And this is what I
Daleks
mean.
with pants.
I mean, in one stream I asked, should you ever? Do you think the Daleks are going to come back with Shooty? Do you think, he'd give that interview and he said, I haven't been the Doctor if I haven't twerked in front of a Dalek. But would RTD do that to him and not have him face the Daleks before he leaves? The trouble is...
There's been rumours of the redesign, haven't there? But I think they're just rumours. I kind of hope not.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Terry Nation estate said, no, we'll sit this one out, thanks.
Yeah. I hope that's the case.
He strikes me as more of a Cyberman kind of guy.
I can't see the Terry Nation. I mean, I don't know anything. I've got no insider knowledge. This is why I like doing the sense for you. We don't pretend we know anything about anybody. We just try and go on instinct. Why would the Terry Nation's estate, who's just reaping all this money, why would they say no? That's the trouble. I can't see why you would actually say no to any redesign.
Well, do they have dibs on the design? I don't know.
Standards and
Daleks with names in general.
Do you know what's happening here, Doug and Dan? I feel that moment like you do as a teacher when the class know that you're not on your game, and they know that one little prod and you will go off topic. And I feel as though the thread, all of you are being naughty school kids, and what they're doing is they're giving me loads of toxic alarms to make us all not detox at all. You're trying to wreck my therapy. Daleks with nibs. I agree. This is when it's all started getting silly.
Yes, Daleks with names should be exterminated.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about the suicidal Dalek in Remembrance that spun around because he couldn't cope with life?
Yeah, that one was a bit weird.
Yeah,
it was a bit like it was a bit like at the end of Dalek when the Dalek decided to commit suicide. It was basically the same. Actually, when you think about it, Remembrance and then Dalek, both episodes end with the Dalek topping themselves.
Yeah, and actually, we've had Daleks. Is it in Planet of the Daleks? I mean, I'm sorry, I won't do the alert because I think this is me being good. But in Planet of the Daleks, when the Dalek, the Supreme Dalek, sat there and there, he tells off the Dalek scientists for screwing up with the the plague they've been inventing, and he bollocks them, doesn't he? he blasts them, and that's the Daleks I like. So it's not quite David Harding Daleks turning on each other. It's just the Dalek gaffer saying, I've been called in. I was on holiday in the Bahamas and you've blooming been so rubbish at this. I've had to blooming get a UFO, get here, and I'm not taking any crap. And you're a rubbish Dalek. You're a defunct Dalek. You're now a dead Dalek. It's a bit like The Apprentice. I think of it.
Fired.
Yeah, you're fired. So yeah, an Alan Sugar Dalek or a Donald Trump Dalek. So yeah, I thought that there's scope there. And just to show you, I mean, Mad McCann might know these areas as well in the northeast, but I showed you these once before where somebody has Daleks, and look there at the Tyne Bridge. Do you know what? I'd give anything, and I would. If I had a spare £6,000-7,000, I would get a full-size Dalek and have it in my hallway. I really, really would. They are stunning. And it would be that grey. It would be that grey.
Yeah, it's really interesting how having all the different colored Daleks side by side, how because they all have their strengths and weaknesses, but yes, the gunmetal grey does look really tough.
Yeah.
Even going around a fairground.
Just something about a Dalek. I remember going to, I think it was I don't know what, it was a convention somewhere, and they had these two Daleks, and we just all turned into kids. I mean, it's obviously, they'd made their own, and there was, fans inside, but you just suspended disbelief, and you had a Dalek coming towards you. I was like a 6-year-old again. There's something about that. I mean, I feel sorry for Raymond Cusack because, I mean, he got nothing out of it. But
it's funny. I just had that exact same thought. Every time I go down this rabbit hole, I just feel bad that guy. Yeah. I feel like he got royally screwed.
Oh, he totally got screwed.
He did. Now, this photograph in particular brings to mind the Nazi theme. We've got two stormtroopers on the TV. Yeah, in that photograph, you've got the Daleks, who are an analogy for stormtroopers, and then you've got the stormtroopers. You've got two franchises clashing. When you look at the two franchises and how they've been written and the stories over time, do you think the Star Wars stormtroopers or the Dalek stormtroopers are the most lethal? Which one do you think does actually win in the sci-fi battle?
Daleks.
I'm biased. I say Daleks.
It's a matter of fact because the stormtroopers can't aim for shit.
That's right. They can't shoot straight. They're a joke.
Hold on. Yellow card. Dan is in denial that Daleks miss. I mean, look at
in the 60s, they didn't miss everything. Just the whole screen just lit up and went negative.
That was a great
saturation.
Effect.
Okay, he's another one for the thread, and for Dan in particular, who seems to be in denial at the Dashi.
If you were on screen in the 60s when the Dalek gun went off, you were dead.
Right,
there was no missing.
Here we go then, Dan. Dan, do you want the Daleks who could had a flamethrower in the 60s? Would you like a flamethrower? Would you like them just like in the movie when it was just like a steam smoke thing? Would you like them to be all special weapons Daleks? Would you like them to have a sink plunger that crushes your skull? Which is the version of the Dalek you'd prefer?
I really liked when they sucked that guy's head off in the was it series 4 in the New Who?
Yeah.
I was like, really
That actually showed that the plunger was deadly because
make fun of it no more.
Yeah. If we're honest, the plunger was a little bit of a joke, but that was clever.
It was. There's some interesting ideas, so let's have a look at some of them. David Harding just says, please, can we have the special weapons Dalek back at some point?
Yeah, I'd love that.
Paul Richards, the eye flashing is quite something. Everything's changed in them. I'm not sure.
I think I know why they didn't have more than one special weapons Dalek on, because you know how in the old shows the Daleks would kill each other if they were out of line. You know, if you had more than one special weapons Dalek in a battalion, they'd probably just annihilate the whole ship.
Yeah, and you don't want him having a bad day. If you have Dalek factions, then they'll absolutely just, talk about, it's like having two brothers fighting over a bedroom. Whoa, now, Rick, let's have some of the cheek as well. Rick Storm, I love the outtake when the Dalek says, oh, bugger, I've lost them. That's the 5 Doctors, I think, isn't it? When he's missing them terribly, isn't he? And he's in a small BBC studio, he's lost them. But yes, Peter Venkman says the Daleks are better than the Stormtroopers. They have better aim. Everybody's agreeing on that one. David Harding was the same. TARDIS Treasures, I'm going to have to get in contact with you. Build your own Dalek. Mine cost under 1,500 bill. 15.
Really?
Mind you, TARDIS Treasures, you haven't seen. I'm not even good at building anything.
Dunny plungers are pretty cheap.
Yeah, I'll start with a plunger.
Then you feel like you've got momentum. Where do you get the balls from?
Divan and Dragons doing us a favor. If you have just joined us, please subscribe and at least give us a like. Yeah. as we battle the internet. Was it TARDIS treasures? Sometimes are more comparable to stormtroopers. I get your point. Maybe not the Cockney ones and the little ones, and the the little Suntaran or the one who eats chocolate. But yes, David Harding ponders something here. Imagine if in Day of the Daleks it was special weapons Daleks instead of the regular Daleks that fought the Third Doctor. Oh God, yeah, you wouldn't.
Well, they just demolish the house.
Yeah, demolish the house. The railway tunnel would collapse, especially if it had a paddy. You have to hope that the special weapons Dalek is accurate every time and doesn't miss, because it's a bit like Samson moving the temple pillars. If he hits the wrong thing, the whole thing, special weapons Dalek, he's off on one. He's had a drink. Keep an eye out for him. And Daleks, like I said, popular culture. There's Blackpool illuminations over the years. Look at them. It's floating in the air.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, man.
I know. Look at that.
I think when they made Daleks fly rather than just a little bit of levitation, I think there needs to be... I don't like how they made the Daleks fly in legions at the end of season 1 of New Who, because it just means that they're really insurmountable. I think you need certain limits. You need rules put in place around your monsters so that you can operate effectively in the universe. Yeah, and I think Daleks, they should have it so that you can hover, but you've got to be like within a foot off. Yes. But you can't just fly off, because otherwise, why have ships?
I thought the most effective. The most effective depiction, I think, of a flying Dalek was that Nuremberg one in New Who. And it was saying exterminate in German, and it was just above the trees. Yeah, that I thought. Of course, it had the historical resonance as well, but I thought that was creepy.
It was very creepy.
Yeah, especially when you heard them hovering off into the distance, going exterminator.
Well, you see, in the waters of Mars, there was that moment when the Lindsay Duncan character remembers being a little girl, and that Dalek who realized she was a time event come into your loft window. You see, as a kid, that would have had me bricking it.
That's what they don't do enough. That sort of stuff is terrifying.
Yeah. And again, what we're saying, one Dalek taken into your world. I mean, can you imagine if you wrote... look, I'm not a writer, but can you imagine if you somehow wrote a story where the time vortex or the time tunnel was a kid's bedroom wardrobe? I know it's the line witch and wardrobe. That's why I'm not a writer. But can you imagine a Dalek in your bedroom? Oh, for God's sake, the kids... Do you know what I mean? It's just... Bring it to the kid. I knew as a kid that I could climb the stairs and I could shout at a Dalek from the landing. I knew I could do that. I mean, I don't think I would have, but I knew I could run up the stairs. But the thought that they now can come up the stairs, if I was a kid now, whoa.
Well, see, I took comfort in knowing that my door was too narrow for a Dalek to fit through it.
It's a lot of thought put into this.
So,
I don't want to sound like I got a big head, but the chat is agreeing with myself.
I think, unless my story from when I was 5, and it was the exhibition in Middlesbrough. It was touring the country with John Pertwee, and to cut the story short, just if you have heard me say it before, my mum and dad had said, you do know the Daleks is just an actor inside. Yes, mum, dad. I think I was 4, actually. Yes, mum, dad, I understand. And we had to go queue for hours. This is when Doctor Who was popular. And the whole of Middlesbrough seemed to be kind of lining up to go into the Town Hall crypt for the exhibition. And one of the main rooms was a couple of Daleks on some railing, on a tram lines, move around, and you get some stereo sound saying exterminate. That's it. Most people would probably laugh at them. My imagination was going, hold on a minute, hold on a minute. And as soon as I heard exterminate, even before I went in the room, I was really getting a cold shiver. And my mum and dad said, you know the score, it's an actor. We went into the room, there's 2 Daleks, they move, there's no wires, and I heard exterminate, and it was like it was fight or flight. I either move now and save myself. I was like Davros doing an escape hatch. I left my mum and dad for dead. I
Come on.
I just ran like the clappers. It was cold fear. And those Daleks moving on tram lines and saying exterminate, I just thought, I've got to get out of here fast. I want to live. Ran out. Mum and dad tried to talk me back in. Nope, you've wasted your money. You lot are nutters. They are lethal monsters. I'm not going in there. And that's the thing about Daleks. It's true. The Daleks have scared me more than anything in Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? What is it about that design? It just terrifies us. I mean, there's some sort of magical serendipity that Roman Cusack just hit on. And
the grill. I can imagine this. It's like just that shot there. There's 3. It's that bit that gets me every time. It's just, and that grill behind it. I love the floating quality down corridors. You know, they just seem to float down corridors. There's something where you think nothing's going to stop you. And you never, as a kid, thought a body on the floor would stop. You know, just have some decoy bodies and then the Dalek can't do anything. But no, you thought, wow. And you've got to think that, you know, as well as Plans of the Daleks, I was scared by the Daleks in Exelon, in the city, you know, when they were always behind John Pertwee going, hurry up, stop talking. They're going to get through this in a minute, you know, hurry up. And then, of course, in Genesis, when they were chasing Tom Baker at the end, and you thought, open the doors a bit more. And the race, just a corridor. Daleks, they are, Anyway, I'm enjoying myself here.
Magic stuff.
It's looking awesome.
Stephanie, hello. Logic doesn't necessarily come into it. A girlfriend's little sister kept having nightmares. There was a Dalek under the bed and stayed believing it after waking. So Doctor Who got banned at their place. Oh, heck. Disaster.
See, that's what you need. You need Doctor Who getting banned, kids being banned from it.
Yes,
to make people want to come back to it.
That's the guarantee that it will survive.
You can't watch this week's episode of Doctor Who because you're going to wet the bed.
Now, this is this has been mentioned a few times actually, and I'm sorry for whoever mentioned it earlier, but Paul Richards has reminded us. As a child, I was terrified of the head of Stengos in Revelation. Yes, that was the glass Dalek had been mentioned in one of the stories, but to show that, I was a bit older, Paul, so I wasn't scared. I was impressed. I thought that was great, absolutely great. And if I listed everything in Revelation, it was that moment.
There's so much detail. They had like bits of the brain pulsing and the teeth with the metal in the teeth. That was messed up.
And again, you see, right, we've got the big decision thread, and lads, what do? The Daleks might come back. Is there a story still left for them? We don't want them to become a diminished product. We don't want them to become a kind of laugh. I don't want to see necessarily inside them. I don't want them to have a mental breakdown. I don't want a Dalek in therapy. I don't want a Dalek, in a parliament. I don't want a Dalek ambassador in the United Nations of the universe. I don't want those things. I want a Dalek who just doesn't negotiate and says, clear off. So is there a story left?
Yeah.
Maybe not, but that doesn't worry me. I don't care if the story's not original, but if it's done incredibly well. Lots of body count and really focus on the fact that they're killing machines and make a meal of it, make them really terrifying again. I don't care if it's a rehash of an old story, because let's face it, they've done it before. I'd be up for a Dalek story with just mass killing and horror, and hopefully the Eighth Doctor, which we know isn't going to happen. but I don't care if it's not original.
That
Just,
sounds
even
like
if they do an outright remake, I don't care. But just do it well. Make it scary. Make them scary again, and don't show what's inside. Make that horrific by just your imagination.
well. Look at
It's
this.
not going to happen, though. It's going to be Daleks with legs, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can just see it.
David Harding agrees with you. Doctor Who needs to be a bit more subversive and dangerous again. It needs another. Yeah. And in a way, that's what you're saying, Doug, is the Daleks just need to be no messing. Let's massacre a few populations.
Yeah.
I think we need a story where we don't get into their heads. We don't know their motivation. They're just
Don't
killers.
Yeah, don't care. They're mindless killers. They just hate everything that isn't them. And that's distilled hate. That's powerful. That's very powerful.
But and look, David Harding, this is a toxic yellow card here. And David Harding, it's your fault. David Harding has even said, I think he's fearing it. What are Dalek's personal pronouns? I mean, I know. Because on Sunday,
you had to go there, didn't you?
Exterminate.
You had to go.
Because on Sunday we our 6 o'clock.
Alarm.
Our 6 o'clock show is going to be discussing a reappraisal, if needed, of the specials from last year. I've done reviews of them. We've all talked about them on every stream, but I am wanting to go back and go, right, come on then. Let's do a reappraisal of the 3 specials. Are they as bad as we thought, etc.? So that should be a tasty one. Morgan Dean, I honestly think there is so much that could be done with the Daleks and menacing, but the current writers and showrunners know. This is the problem, isn't it? It's like the wrong time, wrong place for everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Paul Richards agrees. We just need to scare the crap out of kids again.
Yeah. Scare the little bugs. Scare them.
Yeah, exactly.
Scare the adults too.
Exactly. As Peter Venkman says, exterminate. That's what it's all about.
If we're not getting hit by the censors, it's not good enough.
No.
Yeah, that's controversial.
We need
Stop
ABC censoring and chopping sections out of the episode because it's too scary.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I mean, our final reflections on the Daleks then. I mean, you're happy for them to be risked to come back, knowing what we've had. We've had Davros as some slave to a supreme Dalek. We've gone so many different ways. I'm very worried that you might, and look, I'm going to say it now, and I won't do the alarm again, but it's a bit like David Harding's point. We are all very suspicious that the Sea Devils might have a gender in the future. The Daleks with a gender.
When you say, do you mean an agenda or they have gender?
I mean, that they have gender.
If they're having sex, I mean, it sounds like no, not Daleks. It sounds like the war between the land and the sea is an excuse for a bit of gratuitous titillation.
Well, but you see, with the Daleks, remember they did it with the Cybermen, and I understood it in a way, which is there was one of those stories where David Tennant knew that one of the Daleks inside was a woman. It was the head of Torchwood as well. She was in there, wasn't she? And so there was an element where you kind of could touch the humanity in them for a second. Okay, I understand. The Cybermen were basically changing people who were men on women. But Daleks don't have a gender. They're Khalids, aren't they? They're just Khalids. That's it. And don't change it. Don't change it. Now,
well, that's the whole point. They lost their humanity, didn't they? They had no emotions, nothing. They were just vile creatures who were just built on hate and destruction, and there was no grey area. It's just black or white, and that's how they should be.
Well, we're going to have our big debate on the state of TV with BBC and ABC and how it affects our program. But first, we've got Boomer Doug here.
One of the many influences on Doctor Who was Fu Manchu, a supervillain famously played by Christopher Lee in a series of movies in the 1960s. You can certainly see in the stills here that there's definitely inspiration to Fu Manchu in the guise of Chang, one of the main villains in Talons of Weng Chiang. Another influence obviously is Sherlock Holmes, not just in his appearance, but in his behaviour. There's clearly an indication of personality here. I mean, the Doctor is always the smartest person in the room, which is very Holmesian, I believe. I must confess that Talons of Weng Chiang is one of my favourite Doctor Who stories, written by Robert Holmes, of course, and with a brilliant performance by John Bennett as Chang. It's very easy to see the influence was Fu Manchu. I guess one of the criticisms, perhaps rightfully, is that yellowface was an issue. It's certainly not a practice that would be acceptable these days, but what Talons was trying to do was emulate the tropes of the Fu Manchu movies with Christopher Lee. I mean, clearly he wasn't an Asian. Obviously these days you'd have an ethnically appropriate actor. That was hard to say. Another influence, an obvious influence, of course, is Sherlock Holmes. Obviously Tom Baker wears a deer stalker in Talons of Weng Chiang. I mean, that's obviously a nod to Sherlock Holmes. But the character itself, if I remember rightly, as far back as John Pertwee, was written to be a Sherlock Holmes type character. I believe somewhere I read that the dynamic between the Doctor and the Brigadier was meant to be very much a Holmes-Watson pairing, and you can see that in quite a few episodes. It's pretty evident. So I certainly think two major influences on Doctor Who would be definitely Fu Manchu and Sherlock Holmes. The Doctor is always the smartest person in the room. That's very much a Sherlock Holmes thing. Let us know in the comments, guys. Was Talons of Weng Chiang a Fu Manchu ripoff, or was it just a homage? Do you think the Doctor was influenced by Sherlock Holmes? I think the evidence is there, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. Anyway, back to you, Brendan. See what you think and the rest of the panel.
There we go. So we're back in the room. Your thoughts? Your thoughts on that, Dan?
Oh, look, to be honest, I didn't even know John Bennett. I didn't even know it was Yellowface until, like, I think the DVD release. That's how convinced I was of the portrayal. Look, I still believe that we're about to exit a period of people getting worked up over these things. I think I'll let you in on my take. People, my wife used to work at the ABC shop, and she would always remark at the amount of people of all nationalities, especially those that would come and get all the politically incorrect comedies. And a lot of the shows that the BBC won't even put on its streaming services now, and they used to sell the DVDs, and people would come in all the time asking for these things, and they wouldn't supply them. So, at the end of the day, I'm not convinced that, the general broader audience are as offended as the pearl clutchers that are in charge of the BBC. And I think quite often we're seeing people apologising for things that don't need to be apologised for. The story of Talons, Robert Holmes set out to portray accurately the amount of racism back in remember, it's set in the past. And that's part of the story. Yeah, it's part of the story. If you're watching it and clutching your pearls, you're missing the point of the bloody story.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And
I think, it, buddy. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a fantastic story, and
that's one of my favorites.
And John Bennett's performance, I think, should be applauded, not criticized.
Oh, he's great. He's great.
He's creepy as hell.
We were saying the other day.
Isn't he?
Yeah, we were saying the other day, Doug, weren't we? That I mean, I'm quite strong on this too, Dan, because as a teacher, you dealt with bullying, and it could have a race element or whatever. When people made allegations, said that's racist, that's this, that's that, I would always remind the parents and the kid and go, hold on a minute. Something might come across as something, but that's how you're taking it. What is the intention? And to call somebody racist, like the Philip Hinchcliffe production team when they made Talons, to say they're racist in some way, that was not their intention at all.
Absolutely not.
They were doing a homage, to answer your question. I think they were doing a homage to several things, Doug. Therefore, they were showing you a kind of resonance of different things. Oh God, you know, isn't it mad in the world we're in that you can be paying a homage to something and then later on in history get accused of something else? It's a damn shame, and it ruins. I mean, we're going to talk about this with the BBC and ABC in a minute and what they're up to, because as I saw in one great comment, it said that that BBC used to be famous for costume drama, historical costume drama. Now it's famous for ahistorical drama, changing history. Isaac Newton's one of them. So I think what's very important, just before we go off on this one, but thanks for that on the Talons of Wen Chian. By the way, just before we do the BBC one, Dan and Doug, Fu Manchu as a kid, that thrilled me and scared me. I wish I knew the movie. They won't show them now. This is the blooming trouble. But I remember being a kid, and there was one Fu Manchu movie. I was scared. I was really scared watching it. And I'm trying to, because didn't Peter Sellers play Fu Manchu later?
Yeah, I think it was his last movie before he died. It was a not terribly good comedy. But the Christopher Lee made about 5 or 6 of them, I think. I suppose the thread will know. But they were all quite scary. There's a scene in one of my videos where this woman's hypnotized by Fu Manchu to basically throw this innocent person to a pit full of snakes. I mean, that's scary stuff.
Yeah.
It's scary stuff.
There's a show called Mind Your Language that remember that, and the amount of people that used to come into ABC shop looking for that sort of those comedies, and you will not find a more intelligent, in terms of the cleverness of the writing. I don't think the writers today would be clever enough to write something.
I think there's. No. To add to your point, Dan, I think there's cowardice. I think they try and pretend they're behind an argument, they're behind a cause. But actually, the braver writer, remember, science fiction writers tended to be right on the edge and actually were very brave. H.G. Wells was challenging the whole of the Victorian class system. They are really poking the hornet's nest. And I don't think it's clever to say, I'm going to make this character a trans character in the Star Beast, and that makes me a great writer. No, it does. No, I mean, and it might be worthy what you're doing. It might be. We'll talk about that on Sunday. But you're not developing a cause in any way. It's when you actually say, hold on, where we are now. You see, I would have thought as a science fiction writer, where we are now, and I think we referenced it in our Detox last week. One of the dangers, I think, at the moment as a liberal democratic world is free speech. And what is the role of education now? Because I do start to wonder where we all stand with what we're teaching kids in drama and all the rest of it. So I think it's a big one. Now, it looks as though we are now tiptoeing, Dan. It looks as though into this subject. So I'm going to just kind of signpost it. Right, everybody, get ready. I won't do the toxic alert now. It's switched off. The fall of the BBC and ABC and how this might affect our TV program too. All bets are off. So Thread, deliver. Where are we with the BBC? Should it have a license? Why is it doing so badly? Now, I just want to show the lads why I actually even brought this up at this present moment, just so you can see there is actually a reason. So if I just show you this. Andrew Neil, one of our, he used to, be the editor of the Times, etc. BBC has not created a new TV hit for 5 years, according to the National Audit Office. Its commercial division makes most of its money from old shows that were first released decades ago. Of the BBC's 10 most profitable shows last year, only one, a soft drama from 2019, was created by BBC Studios, while 3 were bought from rival producers. And he just goes on. Let me just click on the right thing there. Sorry, I apologize. I've gone on the wrong thing there. So that he said that. If I just clicked on the wrong thing, I apologize. So
would Doctor Who be classed as something that was bought from a rival producer, considering it's made by Bad Wolf?
I think that's still seen as in-house.
Okay.
But it's a concern, isn't it, that the BBC's output, and I know this because I use the BBC iPlayer a fair bit for repeats of stuff, Two Doors Down, various stuff like that. I'm trying to find comedies that are still funny, and I have to go back in time. So basically, yeah. So, I mean, like I said to the thread and to you two lads, we're talking about the state of terrestrial TV. Why is it in such a bad place? Why is the past still where the profit is really? What's going on, and how is it going to affect our Doctor Who show?
Well, the good stuff they're not even allowing you to buy. They're effectively. I mean, if you, for all the crying about fascism in the last few months with the US election, the irony is, my attitude is, if you have TV and movies and videos that you don't put on the internet, don't make available, and then refuse to sell or make available on streaming services, then you might. That's the equivalent of book burning, in my view.
Yeah.
If you're locking it up.
Good. That's very, very well said. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Book burning, Fahrenheit 451. And yes, censorship we should be very careful of. And actually, but the censorship's now, it's quite sinister and insidious, because the censorship is happening by not appointing certain writers, not appointing certain people's ideas in the first place.
Well, there you go too. Yeah, that is happening. We know that's happening.
So, I mean, where do you stand on this, Doug? Just as we're all just viewers, aren't we? And we've seen the ABC and we've seen the BBC, to name but two, decline really. And in this country now, the argument of getting rid of the license fee is louder than ever.
Yeah, it's. I feel like, well, I guess being in Australia, the example of the BBC that we see is basically purchased by the ABC or other local stations, so we don't get the viewing experience you do. But I feel like the BBC and the ABC don't really speak to me, but I guess, I don't know if they're aiming at me. But then there's often a joke, isn't there, that particularly in Australia, the ABC is aimed at people my age, but then if that's what's happening, I don't feel like it's speaking to me. And there's certainly no content that resonates with me. I mean, I was looking, when you told me about the subject tonight, I was looking at some of the classic BBC shows, things like Blackadder, Faulty Towers, Only Fools and Horses, and those sort of shows. Red Dwarf maybe to a certain extent because they're remaking them, but I think, to be honest, Red Dwarf doesn't gel with me as much as it used to. I feel like what's being made now just doesn't speak to me.
Well, it's like
and obviously DEI has to be part of it, but I think also the subject matter just doesn't speak to me.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about, and we'll try and dive into it. And Thread, you help us out as much as you can here, because it's a big topic, and I think it's apt. I think that the BBC is trying to ride two horses at the moment. So, for example, what they're delivering, like Doctor Who, the diet of this, that, and messaging and everything, and plenty of programs are doing that sort of thing. I'll mention Smoggy Queens soon. Don't worry again, because that is irritating me no end.
I know.
so that's their current diet. But on BBC 3 and 4, they are showing repeats of old comedies. And so it's kind of, hold on a minute here. Are you giving us domestic stereotypes where the woman's in the kitchen? Gosh, shock horror. I mean, The Good Life, really. I mean, he gets The Good Life I love, but The Good Life, Tom gets his own way.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm not saying, please don't censor anything. Please don't take it off. But the point is, it's them who are pious, not me. The BBC are trying to say we're inclusive, we're all about representation, we're being very progressive. Well, actually, The Good Life and stuff like that is not. But I love it because it isn't. But surely you can't say, right, well, have you noticed that trans character in Doctor Who? And have you noticed we've got our first black doctor? And have you noticed this? And have you noticed that? Aren't we amazing?
Yeah,
Meanwhile, we're going to show you The Good Life.
But what the pearl clutches are missing is the fact that it's so wrong is what makes it funny. It's the truth.
Absolutely.
The truth is what makes comedy. The fact that you know that Tom's getting his own way, that's what makes it. That's part of the humor.
That's right. That's right.
And if you want people to evolve, you need to encourage them to think critically about stuff. And if they're watching it and they're not laughing, it's because it's not funny.
Now, I want to make something clear here, because David Harding's in Toronto. Yes, you are correct in assuming that the ABC in Australia that Boomer Doug is referring to is a publicly funded national broadcaster like the BBC in the UK and like the CBC. So we're actually talking about the death of maybe public service broadcasting, because they all seem to think there's a message that has to get in the way of drama, I personally think. But you mentioned DEI as an example, Doug. Have you got any terrible examples that you would come to mind that it just seemed unnecessary?
Well, the obvious one was the character of Rose in Star Beast, I guess. But I think, how can I put this? I think to have diverse characters in any drama or comedy is fantastic, but let's not signpost it. Let's just make them part of the landscape and not draw attention to it specifically. And it's like in our real world. Let's be diverse, but let's not make it an obvious thing.
Well, it's like
about it.
Well, it's like when Freema Agyeman was Martha Jones. I thought less was made of it then. I feel as though if she was now the companion now, they'd make more of it. And that's something that's changed. Martha Jones was just she's become a great character. Like I said, I thought given your first black companion, the unrequited love narrative was not a good idea, RTD. It was not. Just like the first black lead doctor, making him a crying emotional wreck isn't a good idea either.
Well, let's be honest. I wasn't going to go there, but my opinion is that Ncuti Gatwa was a DEI casting. I refuse to believe that he was the best person for the role, based certainly on what I've seen of him, and that annoys me. It needs to be the best character. I guess you could say the same about the Jodie Whittaker character. It was a gimmick. It was a gimmick, pure and simple.
It's just
it didn't need to go there.
It's just I can't, in all honesty, say that when you've had 15 doctors and different actors, the Jodie Whittaker being the first female doctor wasn't the best female actor you could have had, and wasn't the best female representation, and neither has Ncuti been not that a black doctor and a white doctor should be any different, but
no, absolutely.
But because he is the first black doctor, make him as strong and decisive and brilliant as the other doctors. But he's not.
He wasn't the best one for the role. No. That's my point. I don't care what race or gender the doctor is, but I strongly believe both those castings were gimmicks. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Jodie was cast because she worked with Chris Chibnall previously. And I'm pretty sure Ncuti was cast because RTD fancied him, if I'm honest.
I mean, casting
this person.
Yeah, Mad McCann. Wouldn't it be fantastic to realise a character is trans 10 episodes in, not in episode 1, with a big bloody signpost?
Yes, that's my point. Make it natural. Make it evolve naturally. Don't just hit us over the head with it.
And so this is where we are worried with the BBC and ABC and wondering why it's failing, as Andrew Neil said. So as a bit of evidence, just because I'm not just kind of grifting here or baiting people. There was a book, The Noble Liar by Robin Aitken, and he went into a bit of detail. And I'm just wondering if there's any resonance with Toronto and the CBC, David, and with ABC, Doug and Dan. So I'll just show you one or two elements. I'll go bigger because that would be fairer, wouldn't it? So basically, if I go big screen, the cliched critique of the BBC is that it is a nest of lefties which promotes a progressive political agenda and is bedeviled by political correctness. Depressingly, in my experience, the cliche comes uncomfortably close to the actual truth. The BBC really does promote a never acknowledged political agenda.
Well, they've got a DEI policy for a start. I mean,
it is acknowledged. Yeah, there is a policy.
Yeah, I mean, it's of course it's close to the truth. You can see, like, I'll give you a good example. So I'm a paying customer. I mean, the BBC and the ABC have made missteps in terms of dismantling the distribution and physical media. I think they jumped the shark on a lot of that. I mean, and especially now, I think we're about to have a resurgence on physical media, which we're seeing in a number of other forms, especially now that streaming services are starting to fail. There's going to be a consolidation and I think ultimately a failure. So physical media is probably going to bounce back in the next few years. But put that aside, so I'm a paying customer. I wanted to enjoy BBC TV here in Australia. So I subscribed to BritBox because I heard that they had put the Goodies episodes up. Now there's 10 seasons of the Goodies, and we all grew up on them on repeat. And funnily enough, you wouldn't see them repeated today. But 9 seasons were done by BBC, 1 season was done by ITV.
Yeah.
And anyway, I get into BritBox and I start looking for the episodes, and like the seasons only have a couple of episodes in them, and then it's like, oh, the Ralph Harris episode, they pulled that down, they didn't put it up. And so they went through it. Basically, there's almost no episodes there. Anything that had anything remotely offensive or something that could be construed as offensive. Now, to me, you should put the whole lot up there, and you should have the courage of your conviction and cop the blowback.
Well, I mean, I assume that I would hope it's not a royalties issue, and is it just a virtue signaling kind of a look issue? I mean,
no, it's not a royalties issue because, and I can guarantee that because, I think the network DVD person, there was a guy that was basically buying the rights to publish things onto DVD. Not only did he buy the rights to put them out on physical media, but he actually paid for the restoration of the episodes to get them to DVD quality.
Oh, okay.
And so I ended up purchasing the physical media because it's got all the stuff that you will not find it. It's just streaming service.
My frustration with them making these censorship choices. They've just taken Hugh Edwards out of a tiny moment from Fear Her and all this stuff, and you think you can't change history. What's done is done. If mistakes mistakes were made, because you mentioned Rolf Harris, and I'm not going to go into all that allegation stuff, but what I will say is Rolf Harris, the moment he had a documentary with the Queen when he painted her, and the Queen was really quite chilled, and you learnt a lot from her reactions. And if that program's never going to be shown now, we lose something. Can't be big enough to watch them. And I'm not saying you need to put a banner underneath saying Rolf Harris did this, that, and the other. God, if Bliss, happy, you know, they say ignorance is bliss. People could watch the program going, gosh, the Queen, I never knew the Queen talked like that, and not know that Wolf Harris was anything or anything. Does it matter? It's happened. He actually went to jail. So there you go. I mean, punishment was delivered. So why do we have to be doubly punished by taking programs off where you might actually learn about a historical figure like the Queen? I just think sometimes it gets a bit silly because you're not changing history, are you, by banning the program? You haven't changed it.
No.
Don't watch
I mean,
it.
it's the same argument for people that think that, you know, regardless of what you think, certain musicians or whatever, you know, you can't go wiping their music off the face of the earth because that music transcends the artist once the work is created. And it's the same thing I think we were debating the other week about, you know, the writers and the distribution rights. You know, my attitude is you've got actors, you've got production crews, you've got all sorts of people that have put effort into a program, and what it gets pulled off, it gets wiped because one person they find out retrospectively one person did something wrong. That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't, because you're going to wreck all of art, because it's risky, isn't it, that some temples or buildings that are ancient may have been built by people who had dodgy backgrounds. In fact, the chances are very strong. But we're not going to take everything down just because we don't know. It just gets silly. It gets silly. I make the argument in Britain when everyone goes on about the slave trade. I'm going, okay, then flatten Bristol, flatten Liverpool, flatten Glasgow, because apparently most of them buildings are built on that money. So if you really want to go there, get flattening, and me and Mads McCam in the northeast will be part of the renaissance of the northeast, where we are guilt-free. Morgan Dean, separate the art from the artist. Well, yeah, I think we're big enough to do that, aren't we?
Yeah, let's be grown-ups.
So, by the way, I was trying to put it up, and I was hoping you could see it, because you Aussies know what Stephanie's talking about or not. It's interesting that the ABC.
Yes, we do.
Yes,
we do. It's a very funny show, and he's very politically incorrect. And it is interesting that I think it's actually the top-rating show on the ABC. So there's proof that you know, it doesn't have to be DEI and tiptoeing around.
Politically incorrect is usually just another word for a hard truth or a stereotype, which finds itself in the fact that it is a reflection of truth. If it wasn't true, it wouldn't be funny.
Yeah,
it also wouldn't be offensive.
Absolutely. My big problem has always been the tendency now that if somebody disagrees with you or something is said to be inappropriate, the person is cancelled. I mean, as my dad used to say, God bless him, everyone has the right to be a dickhead. I mean, there are two opinions or more to every subject. It seems like we're whitewashing everything, and the book burning analogy previously was just spot on. I feel like generations after ours are not even going to know the true history of the world.
Yeah, because some idiots come along and tried to judge. You can't. I remember doing a university course years and years ago about the history of the universe and creation myths, and one of the things we were talking about heavily back then was you can't assess someone's creation story based on current day knowledge and values. You've got to look at it in the context of the time in which it was created.
Well, I mean, it's a hell of a good debate, and I'm trying to link it to Doctor Who in different ways so we can be relevant as well. But if I'll carry on with this, the noble kind of liar. Right through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and indeed right up to the present day, the BBC has instinctively allied itself with any campaign which is transgressive. Most importantly, this book contains how it is that the BBC has become so deeply hostile to social conservatism. That way of thinking, shared by tens of millions of us, which values a traditional moral code that emphasizes virtues like patriotism, self-restraint, and decency. And this is where, as you know, the Star Beast, it's in my head at the moment. So many parents found that whether it is a worthy message, the trouble was it's unsettled business, and some parents didn't want their children to be hearing a message about a trans child. That was the issue. Why does the BBC and possibly the ABC feel as though they have to go there? And this evidence here, the BBC's relentless hostility towards Donald Trump is a recurrent theme. I find it difficult to recall any single BBC report on Trump which portrayed him in a positive light. And then it goes on to say the same happened with Brexit. And so you've got the BBC. You can tell me about the ABC in a minute. And I'm sure when you did your vote on the Aboriginal rights, where did the ABC stand? Because I know most of the Australian media went on one side, didn't they? They didn't say here's two sides to this.
The parallels with the US election and the media coverage and what happened to us with The Voice is very similar. I mean, the ABC was running it up the flagpole pretty much from the moment it was announced. You know, I mean, I used to be a big ABC watcher, especially when they had the News 24/7 channel. But it got to the point where it's just, it was like they had a checklist of everyday live broadcasts where they would literally just have all these talking points that were on repeat, and they would just bring in personalities, and then the personalities from different political persuasions got removed, and it was basically very much a one-sided. And it's interesting because I believe you guys have got people in the BBC saying no, we're actually, the BBC is quite right-wing, and the general public be going, no, it's not. That's just crap. And then we've got the same problem here. We're trying to battle with the ABC to get it realigned so that it's more balanced.
Well, obviously, I linked the BBC and ABC up because when I lived in Australia, and you can tell me better, but the ABC seemed to be just a slightly lower budget, I'm sorry to say that, version of the BBC, which has a lot of money behind it. Let's be honest. You were a smaller population, weren't you? So and the ABC seemed to reflect a lot of the BBC. And remember, the BBC used to be referred to as anti. Now, you know, anti. I was saying to Doug the other day, it's no longer anti, it's frosty knickers. It's a brutal nanny now. It's a stroppy, it's a step aunt that you don't want to meet. It's that dodgy dinner lady now. I really don't think the BBC is a friendly, warm, you know, arm around the shoulder auntie. It was always patronizing, let's be honest. Listen with mother. I mean, listen to the phrase, listen with mother. But here, they talk about there is a solemn covenant that lies at the heart of the BBC's relationship with the country. In return for the license-free revenue, it promises to tell the truth and to be impartial on all matters of public debate. And there's where he calls it the noble lie. Now, you can tell me about ABC. David Harding can tell me about CBC. The BBC was, I've just shown you, was not on the run. It wasn't neutral on Brexit. It wasn't neutral on Donald Trump. It's not neutral on lots of subjects that at the moment are unsettled. And then I link it to Doctor Who and go, I really don't want you to risk wrecking what should be a safe family show.
Yeah.
It's all right. I'm challenging you here. Now, just before we kind of develop this a bit more, Peter Hitchens had a brilliant article on the BBC. And I'm saying this because I know it has resonance with the ABC. And if I just put it on the big screen for everybody for a second, why is it he was saying that the BBC ends up showing shows about divorce, homosexuality, abortion, and all three at once? Satire, so-called, spreads its spiky wings. Even my mother's favourite radio serial, Mrs. Dale's Diary, suddenly had the musings of a doctor's wife on progressive themes. The words call girl and perfumer were mentioned. And he said, and yet the voice it was delivered in was always calm, educated, unashamedly middle class, and predominantly English. And the point is, it kind of again has it both ways. Everybody's going mad about a doctor's episode. I mean, it's on during the day, and I didn't see it. But if I could just get to the moment, I mean, here we go. Phil Burrough. Does the BBC or ABC inform? Does it educate? Does it entertain? The answer, like Family Fortunes. I was going to show you, and I'm just going to get to it now, just so I'm fair on the score. Oh gosh, yes, it was. There we go. Here we go. From the BBC soap opera Doctors, a GP's 14-year-old daughter invites a boy who is sexually interested in her for a sleepover. The concerned father finds out the boy is gender fluid and a victim of hate speech, so stops worrying and invites him to sleep in her bed whenever he wants. That's apparently, yeah, I know. And this is where you've got our impartial, the noble lie, that, you know, with license fee money is actually delivering a message. I think a lot of parents would go, well, what? And this is called progressive. And these are the people. Yeah, well, Doug, these are the people who are making Doctor Who as well.
I know, I don't have words, I'm sorry.
It just
Any
sounds,
words I do have probably get you cancelled, so I'm going to just observe. I'm shocked at that.
And so when we talk about the fall of the BBC and the fall of ABC and possibly the fall of CBC, is there any? Do we have to explain how many people in Great Britain who actually, because they're lucky that not many people will have watched Doctors, how many people would find that offensive, troubling, and say, I really don't want that on?
To be honest, you'd question the values of the program probably, but I mean, but taxpayers' money's having to go into producing this stuff as well. I mean, if that was the ABC making that, that's the thing that. So we don't pay a license here for US and British audiences. We in Australia, we literally have our income tax diverted to pay for Auntie with the ABC. So we don't have any choice. They get the money, and this is the problem. They get the money regardless of what's produced and regardless of the ratings. There's no KPIs, and they just produce. If the chair and the board let them produce it, they'll produce it. And if it doesn't reflect society, people just don't tune in, and that's why the ratings have dropped off a cliff.
But this is the other thing. I mean, and David Harder makes a good point here. It sounds like the ABC and BBC are playing things way too safe, and that stifles creativity. You're never going to get the next great show if you're always pulling your punches. And this is the thing; they should be out there. I don't think the Doctor's episode is that what we have in mind, but
then they're not playing it safe. They have an agenda. They are activists, and that's evident when you watch them. I think someone said that the BBC sees us as the great, I think it was Paul Richards says, the BBC sees us as the great unwashed. You know, they they sound like they're morally superior. It's similar to what we saw in the US election. I think there's a real common thread here in terms of a political class that just think they're better than the rest of us, and they think that we all need educating.
Yeah, I mean, and look, and I'm gonna throw the examples at you to show you how they don't get it right though. It's well known that the BBC, believe it or not, the BBC turned down remaking All Creatures Great and Small over fears it would not speak to a younger audience. No, they're no better. And to link to David Harding's point, I think in a way they're playing safe by accident, by default, because the people who are making programs aren't great entertainers. It's a kind of accountancy exercise. They have policies, but they don't have an entertainment brain or skill. And unfortunately, you've got people who are saying their version of entertainment is basically polemic. So when they had the chance, and remember, they're famously, I know in Australia and America, All Creatures of Great and Small was really popular. Suddenly, Channel 5 took it, and it became a massive hit again, because in a way, the BBC were playing some other safe game, which is, that's not our people. They got it wrong. They don't understand their own people.
It's quite a nice little show, the remake. I've watched it. It's quite well done.
Yeah. And of course,
it's a bit feel good, but it's lovely. Yeah.
It teased me up. I can't help it. If we're discussing...
come on, let's bring this one on.
How is this playing it safe? They think it's safe because they're safe from criticism. This is what safety is, David Harding, in a way. they are ticking so many boxes that they are safe from being accused of doing anything that seems regressive. But I am from Middlesbrough, and the Smoggy Queens, which is going to be a 6-part comedy, is not reflecting anything I recognize. Therefore, it's not even representation. It's a fantasy. Therefore, it's an imposition of a code, of a moral, of a message from a metropolis somewhere else that doesn't even know where Middlesbrough is, to be quite honest. I find it so irritating. Now, on our Sunday show, I showed this, but you couldn't really see the synopsis. Take a look at some of these episodes. This is supposed to be a northeastern town. A drag queen becomes obsessed with winning a Submissive of the Month title at a local dungeon, roping the lesbian into an absurd training regime involving yoga, blah, blah, blah.
So where's your local dungeon, Brendan? Where's the local dungeon in your area then?
I haven't told Jamie. I don't know. I don't know. It's a shed. It's like Wolf Creek. Mistress Makeover. The group decides to transform the alcoholic lesbian into a glamorous dom. What's this got to do with working class? What's this got to do with being an industrial town? What's this got to do with anything?
It sounds like it should be on Pornhub, to be honest.
Yeah. The latex fiasco. One queen is asked to perform at a BDSM latex fashion show, but gets stuck in their custom outfit. Oh, that's a laugh.
No, are you being served, is it?
No. And so just so everybody knows, we are using examples. This is a current example. The whips and giggles, I think, is a disgrace. A drag queen accidentally brings a riding crop to a children's story hour performance. The ensuing scandal forces the gang to infiltrate a local BDSM club to borrow a replacement crop with less Oh, that's so funny. It's run on so many levels. The comedy is that they took an adult thing into a children's sphere. But we have all been arguing that shouldn't be happening ever. Not by accident, because why is a drag queen seen as better for reading stories? I was saying to Doug the other day, when we were at primary school, did you have some auntie, some grandma, some dinner lady would do some bit extra, and they'd sit with a kid one-to-one. The kid read, and they corrected you. Suddenly, the idea is the drag queen, it's a big performance, reads to kids. I'm an English teacher. It's the wrong way around. The kid should be practicing reading and be corrected. This is all run on so many levels, and then to make a comedy out of it, you just the screw is loose.
Did we establish, Brendan, who's writing this crap? Is this someone that's well known or new on the scene? Do they have a background in stand-up comedy or writing? I mean, who are they, and what's their deal?
I'm going to have to keep researching this. I couldn't find too much, but the point we were trying to come up with, because we're trying to be fair, but the thing is, as I said earlier, the censorship is insidious. I bet you, because I can guarantee it, the writer will be obviously approved, as in we approve the message. You're going to write about gay rights. All right, that's great. Oh, you're going to write about the Black Angle and Windrush. Oh, yeah. You're going to write about a white working class kid. Oh, no, that, I'm sorry.
Nobody wants to see that.
But this is why the BBC is failing, because they have picked a program that ticks the box that, we're doing a northeastern town. But having lived in that northeastern town for 56 years,
but the people that are writing this have probably got that bent warp reality where they think that half the people actually are that way inclined, which is not right. I mean, there's no way that this would speak to a broader audience.
No.
It's just, I mean, I don't know. I think David Hardin's talking about this Smoggies as well. So long as a show is on at an appropriate time for its content, I don't have a big problem with letting viewers make it a hit. I see what you mean. We certainly don't want censorship. But what my point, David, is that when the BBC pretends they are representing the nation, they're not very good at representing working class. And so they suddenly go, we're going to do a 6-part comedy drama set in Middlesbrough, northeast town. We haven't done much up there. In fact, I'm being half blooming serious. They don't really know where it is. Oh, yeah. But what they've done is they've taken their metropolitan views and ideologies and thought, yes, we'll have a load of drag queens and BDSM and all that stuff in that town. So win-win. They're not right. I tell you what, if they wanted to represent the Windrush generation and how they were treated in the 1950s and 60s, by God, they'd want to make it accurate. Oh, ho, ho. If they wanted to depict certain things in history of the right side of things, they'd want to depict it accurately. But when it comes to representing white working class, no, let's have a bit of a wheeze. Let's twist it. Why? Absolutely why? I'm sorry, that's an insult. That's disrespectful, and it's called fantasy.
Yeah, I'd like to make a point that I don't have a problem with any of this getting made. It's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that it's being pushed as though, you know, you're taking taxpayers' money and you're producing this stuff and pretending that it's for the wider audience, while your audience is shrinking.
Absolutely.
I mean, the truth is, David Harding, it will have to be shown late at night, I'm guessing. But then you think, so the only time Middlesbrough is represented is late at night with a lie. I mean, what is that? Does that make our terrestrial broadcasters good? So, you know, you get all these comments coming through, and I just want to see what your thoughts are on them. So Tezza here says, once known for its period dramas, this is the thing I said earlier, now it fills them full of ahistorical characters to meet EDI goals, like mini lectures on critical race theory. Similarly, sitcoms and comedies. It has now banned shows it made this side of the millennium for being offensive. The BBC is finished. Do you have a problem? I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth. Does everybody in the thread in the panel have a problem with the Isaac Newton example? Changing history and making it historical. Wolf Creek's done the same. Bridgerton.
Yeah, I do. I know there's a fair argument that it's no big deal and for his own reasons, but I strongly believe that when you're representing a real historical character, you should make an effort to respect that historical character and represent them at least moderately accurately. That bugs me. They can do whatever they want with characters that weren't real. I don't care. But when they start, there was, what was it on Netflix? Wasn't there a series about Cleopatra and they made her a woman of color or something, and nobody watched it? I mean, what's the deal with that?
I suppose she was Egyptian, of course, but maybe the problem was she'd been made to look like Elizabeth Taylor half the time. But I'm binge watching. I've been binge watching Cobra Kai this week, and I mean that's a great show. But the reason it's so good is because it actually represents all sorts of perspectives in the one show. You have old school thinking.
Absolutely.
You
have, you know, current day sort of thinking and values juxtaposed, so you can see it all together in a nice melting pot, and it's just entertaining, and it's not trying to push a message on you.
Written. That's the difference, isn't it? It's well written.
The thing is, when I showed you that covenant that the BBC takes the license fee off us, which is a tax, to tell the truth. But, for example, my example about Middlesbrough being represented in that way is it's not telling the truth that's there. And David Harding's been saying it. Yes, you have to represent unfortunate truth and convenient truth. You can't just change the truth. I'm sorry, we're not doing 1984 suddenly, are we? So basically, you know, ignorance is truth and all that nonsense. 2 and 2 makes 5. You can't do that. So, you know, the truth is historical Britain looked very white. Depict it like that. If you need to make shows that represent the population as it is now, make them. But you can't suddenly not tell the truth and make the past look completely different.
You've hit a really good point there. One of my big bugbears, I think they call it colorblind casting, when they put characters set particularly in, I had some examples but I've forgotten them, but shows set in the past, but they make them diverse in their ethnicity, where as lovely as that is, that wasn't the reality of it. And these shows are not depicting how it was, and that kind of bugs me a little bit. And I know it shouldn't, but it stands out. The characters need to be representative. I mean, we all know the good old days weren't the good old days, but that's just the way they were. Let's not
And it doesn't
make it sound like it's anything else.
But it doesn't win over the audience anyway.
No,
so I mean, just by doing this and making Anne Boleyn black or something, it doesn't make us go, "Oh, we're all colorblind now." It gets people's backs up.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
because you're denying truth.
Yes, when you're
Exactly,
twisting, you're twisting the history of a country, and I'd love to see some other countries change their past for the sake of an argument. No, they wouldn't. Paul Richards, Galton and Simpson, I remember Steptoe's Son and all that, had talent, even bring up social issues, but made them funny. Steptoe's Son,
well said.
Some would argue it's almost like a drama, isn't it? Steptoe's Son, it's unbelievable.
Till Death Do Us Part's another example. Alf Garnett, I mean, he was he was meant to be an example of a person you weren't supposed to like, but apparently he became so popular because of Warren Mitchell's portrayal. But that was a show that spoke a lot, but it spoke with comedy and good writing.
And you see, you've got all these suspicions here. The main purpose of BBC dramas is to lecture rather than entertain. The last couple I started, I gave up on very quickly. Yeah. We don't watch it anymore, and it's not a choice. Then I'm not being ideological. There's nothing that's grabbing me anymore.
But Brendan, if you don't like it, you're a bigot.
Well, I don't like the subject matter. You know, I'll obviously watch the beginning of Smoggy Queens because I'm a Middlesbrough lad, but that's a different thing, isn't it? I'm just seeing how it. But I'm not wanting to see a show about drag queens doing BDSM and reading to kids. How does that appeal? And I don't find it funny. I'm an ex-teacher. I don't find it even funny. For some reason, they are making programs to cater for the 2% of the UK population. If they can't see that it only coincides with only 2% of the UK viewers, they have either bad management, poor judgment, or everyone is woke. And is this the same vibe you have in Australia?
This is what bugs me. It used to be about the ratings, didn't it? I mean, the ABC say they don't worry about that, but it's about making programs that appeal to a large group of people, because it's all said and done. It's all about revenue and making money, but obviously the ABC doesn't follow that criteria, and I just don't get it. I mean,
it was even there's a particular program on the ABC called Q&A, which is basically an excuse to get politicians from both sides in, and then have controversial figures, and then the audience, they get up and ask questions and stuff.
That's right.
That used to be one of the most highest rating shows in its time slot, and it's just died over the last 10 years because
they watered it down a bit, didn't they?
Well, it just went too one-sided. You basically knew that the audience was all geared one way, and they were there to, kick any right-wing politicians just got kicked, and there was it had lost any debate. It was basically just, woke talking points.
I saw that when I used to live in Australia. I remember that because I thought, it's like Question Time in Britain, if everybody knows what I'm comparing.
Yeah, it's very similar.
But I saw that the Q&A started to go in very, very heavy, very kind of, it was almost like they were sounding academic. And it was like, here's a theory. And I thought, this is a little bit, not inaccessible, but just dull. You need to get the populace talking about the current issues in your country and actually making it sound like some university thesis with some dry academics, because I know Q&A in ABC started just, sometimes it wasn't a lot of politicians, you started getting lots of academics, and it was like,
they just started getting lots of academic. You're right, that's exactly what started happening, because pollies started refusing to come on because it was just, it wasn't worth the effort of turning up and just getting slammed by the audience that were clearly biased. Or the presenter.
No, while we're having this bit of a kind of, we sound as though we're on the same page on this. Do you know what? I'm going to say it. I'm not going to put the alarm up, but you and the thread, if we think like this, why the hell are we tolerating Doctor Who still being made? Because the risk is it'll be absolutely butchered. Why are we risking it for another season? When I did that survey ages ago, people are kind of, I don't want it cancelled. But none of us seem to be disagreeing. We are all, apparently risking it being butchered to pieces. I'll remind everybody what the vote was. 60% of people think RTD is getting it wrong, but only 21% said cancel the Doctor Who show. Maybe reboot it 17%, 41% said continue, 22% said rest. Look, what we're talking about now seems to be saying take it off fast and save it.
Yeah,
I just
it's a tough one.
I say save it and keep it on the air.
Yeah, I can only speak for myself. I'm an eternal optimist. I keep thinking somewhere down the track it's going to get better, but not with this particular production team. And I know they've got some fresh writers in for season 2, but they've already filmed them, so clearly the stories won't reflect the backlash that's been happening. So we're probably going to get more of the same. I think we're just gluttons for punishment, are we? I mean, I'll keep watching it and I'll keep complaining about it and I'll keep hoping there's going to be something better. But I'm going to see it through to the end, and I suppose a lot of fans are like that. Although I've been quite interested to see a lot of really hardcore fans have jumped ship. I mean, really jumped ship. I mean, I think even you know some, Brendan, that no longer watch the show. And
it grieves me because I'm closer to the exit door, but I can't foresee me. I just can't see it. Having watched Doctor Who all my life, I can't see me knowing it's on TV, but I won't watch it.
Have we got Stockholm Syndrome or something? Is that what it is?
Well, maybe. Look, my view is it's really hard it's a lot harder to start something than it is to stop something. And I think if it gets stopped, I don't think it's coming back for a really long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
My view is I'd like, we saw the original show reinvent itself oodles of times in its 26-year run. And I think that, it's only a couple of key people away from being able to turn around. We see this in all manner of different aspects of our lives. It just needs fresh new leadership.
Mind you, Doug, you were saying to me, and I want to rate it now in our kind of stream, we were talking the other day and you made a good point about routines and schedules and what we are missing now with public service broadcasting.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to that thing about the group experience. I mean, the Saturday night watching Doctor Who, lovely segue actually, because I've got a video coming up about Saturday morning cartoons, and for people of a certain age, that was our time to sit down and watch our programs, because there was no physical media, there was no streaming, and it's the group experience and having a routine. And your memories and your routine worked out by, it's 8 o'clock on a Friday night, so you'd watch a particular program, or to use Doctor Who as an example, Saturday night you'd watch Doctor Who, and there was something comforting about the routine. Now there is no routine, and it's lovely to have the accessibility to watch what we want when we want, but something is lost. And I maybe I'm showing my age, but I really miss that. I love the routine of this enjoy, like when you go to a cinema, which I haven't done for quite a long time, that particularly watching a comedy, that shared experience of enjoyment, that seems to be lacking now, and it's a little bit sad, I think. And
I mean,
that's certainly reflected in terrestrial TV.
Yeah, because we were saying, Doug, weren't we, that okay, we're not in denial. There's streamers out there. There's Disney, there's Netflix, of course, and that's part of why Doctor Who and other shows are waning in the ratings, we guess. Yeah. But on top of that, I get your point about the schedules, and you can reinvent Saturday night TV again. They did it in 2005 on the BBC, and you had Strictly Come Dancing, you had Doctor Who, and all of a sudden the ratings went up. But the other point I wanted to add to Doug's point about, as generations, do we not want any predictability? Because a lot of the people who watch our channel and other channels, that just little YouTube channels, you like a set time. You like to know when we're on, even though you can catch us later. So there's still an instinct for routine. But on top of that, the other thing I wanted to say with Doug and Dan is, as well as, Saturday night was this, tea time was the educational kids programs and stuff, that I want predictability back in Doctor Who. I want Doctor Who to be predictably scary and get back to. If the nation, if all of Australia, America, Canada, and Britain, if all the parents knew that Doctor Who, you park the kids there, a bit like you do with a Disney movie while you're doing the washing up, you park the kids there, they're going to be bricking it, their imagination's going to be fired off, then that's good. But if you think Doctor Who's going to be doing strange messaging, Doctor Who's going to be doing things that you're not, you're in charge of. I mean, I know as a teacher, sex education, you need to negotiate with the parents because they have thoughts on how things should be delivered. So, and the same with RE. So suddenly Doctor Who just delivers blah. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not a given anymore. And I just think Doctor Who should be predictable. Its job, its USP is to scare the kids. That should be what it does.
Absolutely. Yeah, make it mainstream viewing again. Not a sort of a cult niche show. It's becoming. I mean, the irony is RTD actually made it a mainstream hit back in 2005 and made it cool again, and people who would never admit to watching Doctor Who were watching it, and it was Saturday viewing, and I think I can't remember what night it was on. It might have been Sunday, but now it's gone from that to this niche show that only hardcore fans watch, or people that are part of the agenda that they're.
And Talons of Wayne Cheyenne raises a good point, but do you know what? I don't have that optimism. He says, to be fair, Trump's election could influence Doctor Who going forward. A lot of entertainment media companies seem to be shifting the narrative because of the election result. The trouble is, Talons of Wayne Cheyenne, is Trump has just been elected for 4 years, so America might do whatever. Britain has just elected a Labour government for the next 5 years, and we're at the opposite end of things. So I don't have much optimism about anything made in Britain. And and even the American companies might think, well, Trump's only there for 4 years, so we can still fight him, we can still argue with him, we can still. So I don't know. I'm not too sure that. I know people are saying, "Oh, here's the moment. The fight back started." Has it? Just because Trump's won in America doesn't mean it's a slam dunk, does it?
No, not at all.
So, God, what a debate! I mean, God, and I think it's one we're going to have to revisit because this could go on and on and on and on and on and on forever, couldn't it?
The thread is on fire, by the way. Congratulations to you guys in the thread. There's some really fantastic feedback coming.
Well, I've had private messages saying they want Dan to stay up later, and because I know he's knackered. You're knackered, Dan, aren't you? But he's thinking, God, this is going on forever. Agreed. Cybermat Strike says David Harden. I just don't see it working out that way. People need to want to watch again, and I'm not sure after this prolonged downturn in quality that they want to now. I know my optimism that was there, and if anyone sees our streams before we did Space Babies, I had Michelle who was optimistic. John Daly was optimistic. I had half a panel at least who were very optimistic. By the end, they've all said, So there we go. And Talons of Winchai, in fairness, Brendan, I suppose it depends how much influence Disney truly has on the show. Thank you to everybody. Remember, on Sunday at 6 p.m, we're going to do a reappraisal of the specials. And I don't know what I'm going to say. I know what I've said before, but I'm going to watch them all again. Can the thread do that? I'm going to force you to. Watch Wild Blue Yonder, Star Beast, and The Giggle again. Are they as bad as we said? Can you now get over the bits that we've always argued about, or are they worse? And I will have my panel ready on Sunday at 6 p.m, and we are going to give an honest reappraisal, the revisitation, and we will see what we all say. So please join us for that. I don't like to be predictable. I know there's some streams out there where you can almost write their script for them. I don't know what I'm going to say. So let's just see. So thanks, lads. Thanks an awful lot. That was good, and I think the thread really enjoyed it. So go the detox. There we go. So I said all I've got to do now is say goodbye to everyone.